Mercy was supposed to be simple. Save a life. And someday, somehow, kindness would find its way back to you. That was what the old stories promised. Help the beggar at your door, and he might reveal himself as a prince. Show compassion to a wounded beast, and perhaps you would discover nobility hidden beneath its fur. But at 3 a.m, when I was kneeling in frozen dirt with both hands buried in the hot, slippery blood of a dying stranger, I was not thinking about rewards. I was thinking about breath, about the broken rattle inside his chest, about the way each shallow inhale sounded weaker than the last, and about the terrifying truth that my grandmother's teachings were the only thing standing between the creature beneath my hands and a corpse growing cold beneath the trees. Then dawn came, and with it, 100 wolves. Their howls tore through the forest so violently that it sounded as though the sky itself were splitting apart. That was the moment I learned the truth no fairy tale had ever warned me about. Some acts of mercy do not lead you toward grace. They bind you to fate. The night I saved a black wolf behind my grandmother's cottage, I believed I had rescued a dying animal. By sunrise, 100 wolves had surrounded my home, and they had not come merely to thank me. They had come to claim the debt. They had come to claim me. Because not every life debt is repaid with gratitude. Some are repaid with loyalty, some with blood, and some with the rest of your life. Chapter 1: The Wound That Refused to Close. The herbs were wrong. I knew it the moment the stone pestle crushed them against the bottom of the mortar. I had gathered everything beneath the moon exactly as grandmother had taught me. Valerian root for pain, yarrow to slow bleeding, comfrey to help bone knit. The measurements were right. The leaves were fresh. Even the moon had been in the proper phase. Yet the paste did not turn green. It turned gray. Not silver gray. Not the soft gray of rain clouds. Death gray. The color of something already ending. Something is coming, grandmother said from her chair beside the fire. She did not lift her eyes from her knitting. She did not need to. Her needles had stopped moving, and in our cottage, grandmother's silence warned of danger more surely than any scream. I wiped my hands against my apron, leaving dark streaks across the coarse linen. What kind of something? The kind that forces a choice. Her needles began again. Click, click, click. Then she added, "You will need the red bottle, 3rd shelf." My breath caught. The red bottle. In all my 23 years, I had seen grandmother use it only twice. Once on a child crushed beneath runaway horses, once on a woman whose husband had. I shut the memory away before it could fully rise. The red bottle meant someone was standing at death's threshold. It meant ruby clay healing, the kind of magic that demanded nearly as much from the healer as it gave to the dying. "Who needs it?" I asked. Grandmother did not answer. She merely lifted one knitting needle and pointed toward the door. I had barely crossed the threshold when a heavy crash sounded from the trees. Wet thunder. Something large collapsing into the undergrowth. Then silence. A heartbeat later came a wheezing breath, so raw, so painfully human in its agony, that my body moved before fear could stop me. I ran. Everyone in Millbrook knew the forest behind our cottage became dangerous after sunset. We lived at the edge of shifter territory, where human roads ended and pack law began. There was no wall marking the border, no gate, only signs everyone had learned never to ignore. Deep claw marks carved into tree trunks, scent markings sharp enough to sting the eyes. And sometimes, a glimpse between the trees of a wolf far too large to be natural. Cross far enough into those woods, and human law could no longer protect you. You belonged to the packs then, to their rules, their judgment, their hunger. But the sound had come from nearby, too near to be deep inside pack territory. And there was something inside me, something grandmother had spent years trying and failing to harden, that could not leave a living creature to suffer when my hands might still save it. I found him barely 20 yards beyond the tree line. Even collapsed on his side, the wolf was enormous. His shoulder would have reached my waist if he had been standing. From nose to tail, he stretched nearly 6 feet across the blood-soaked leaves. His fur was black as midnight water, except where blood had clotted through it in rust-colored masses. There was so much blood beneath him that the fallen leaves had become a dark burgundy carpet. He was dying. I saw it in the uneven rise of his ribs, in the pauses between breaths that lasted too long, in the way his golden eyes followed me with an intelligence no ordinary animal should have possessed. Those eyes did not hold panic, they held resignation. He was watching death approach, and he had already accepted it. "Goddess, help me," I whispered as I dropped beside him. His lips peeled back from enormous teeth. A warning. Even half dead, he could still tear out my throat. "I know," I murmured, keeping my voice low. "I know you can kill me, but right now I am the only chance you have." A weak growl vibrated in his chest. "So for the next few minutes, we are going to trust each other." I did not wait for his agreement. There was no time. My hands moved across his body until they found the worst injury, a savage cut running across his ribs. It was deeper than any wound should have been while its victim still breathed. Bone showed through torn flesh, and beneath it, something pale fluttered weakly with every breath. Lung tissue. The red bottle felt warm inside my pocket, as though it already knew why it had been brought. I pulled it free, tore the cork loose with my teeth, and poured half its contents straight into the open wound. The wolf's entire body locked beneath my hands. His back arched. His jaws opened in a soundless scream. "I am sorry," I whispered again and again, throwing my weight across him even though, at full strength, he could have flung me aside like a child. "It has to burn. It has to burn to work. Grandmother's strongest remedies always burned." She said a body had to understand it was being saved. It had to feel the battle and choose to fight beside the cure. I had never known whether that was true healing wisdom or merely one of her strange beliefs. But I had watched that red medicine drag 3 people back from death. I had seen it close wounds no one should have survived. So I worked. Fast. Yarrow paste into the smaller cuts. Comfrey-soaked cloth around the damaged ribs. Pressure where the blood pulsed hardest. My hands followed the pattern grandmother had carved into me since childhood. Stop the bleeding. Steady the bone. Give the body a reason to remain alive. The wolf watched every movement. He never looked away. Those golden eyes remained fixed on my face with such intensity that I felt as though he were not merely observing me, he was weighing me, judging what lived inside me, finding me, what, foolish? Useful? Worthy? I could not tell. "You must have made someone very angry," I murmured while my hands worked. Talking steadied me. It kept my fear from reaching my fingers. "These cuts are too exact. This was not a fight." His ear twitched. The smallest acknowledgement. "This was an execution," I continued, "and somehow you stayed alive long enough to crawl away." His breathing stuttered. I pressed harder against the wound. "Well, whoever tried to kill you did not finish the job." I lifted my eyes to his. "You are not dying tonight. I will not allow it." The conviction in my voice was stronger than the certainty in my heart, but grandmother had always said healing was half knowledge and half command. Make the body believe it will survive, and sometimes it becomes stubborn enough to obey. I did not know how long I remained kneeling among those wet, blood-dark leaves. Time became meaningless when I healed. Minutes stretched into hours. Hours collapsed into heartbeats. There was only torn flesh, crushed herbs, and the desperate rhythm of breathing I refused to let stop. Then, slowly, impossibly, the blood began to slow. The wolf's chest rose more deeply. His golden eyes, which had started to cloud with death, sharpened once more. "There," I breathed, finally sitting back on my heels. Only then did I notice my hands were trembling. The strength that had carried me through the treatment drained away all at once. leaving exhaustion in its place. You are going to live, I told him. You will scar. You will hurt for weeks, but you will live. A sound rolled low inside his chest. It was not quite a growl, not quite a whimper. Something between gratitude, a question, and a warning. I should have left then. I should have returned to the cottage, washed his blood from my skin, and pretended I had never found him. That would have been wise. That would have been safe. Instead, I did what I had always done, the very thing grandmother had never managed to train out of me. I stayed. I will come back at dawn to check the bandages, I said softly. I reached out and placed my palm against the top of his head. His fur surprised me. It was soft, thick, warm beneath the blood. Do not die before then. I did not spend half of grandmother's red bottle just to lose you now. His eyes closed for the briefest moment beneath my touch. And in that instant, I could have sworn something shifted in his face, something painfully human, something aware. Then his eyes opened again, and he was only a wolf, only a wounded animal I had saved. I pushed myself to my feet. Every muscle protested as I turned toward home. I had taken 3 steps when the first howl rose from the depths of the forest. I froze. A second howl answered. Then another. 10, 20, 50. The voices surged from deep inside pack territory, the forbidden woods I had been taught since childhood never to enter. The sound trembled through my bones. Something ancient and instinctive inside me screamed a single command. Run. Hide. Survive. I looked over my shoulder. The black wolf was watching me again. This time, there was no mistaking the emotion in his golden eyes. Recognition, and something disturbingly close to regret. I ran for the cottage. I slammed the door behind me and drove the bolt into place with blood-slick hands. Grandmother stood at the window. In one hand, she held the twin of the red bottle I had carried into the woods. How many? She asked quietly. I do not know. Dozens, maybe more. They are coming for you. She did not ask it. She stated it as fact. By dawn they will be here. Why? My breath caught in my throat. I saved him. You saved someone important. Grandmother finally turned from the window. Her eyes looked older than I had ever seen them. Ancient. Sorrowful. Already grieving something I did not yet understand. Important enough that his pack will come to collect the debt. She paused. Or collect you. Cold spread through me. With wolves, she added, it is often difficult to tell the difference. She crossed the room and enclosed my blood-stained hands in hers. Listen carefully, child. When they come, and they will come, you must remember this. Her fingers tightened around mine. Mercy is not weakness. Her voice dropped. But mercy is always a chain. I could no longer hear the wolves, yet their howls seemed to linger inside the walls. You bound yourself to that creature the moment you chose to save him, Grandmother said. And now, she did not finish. She did not need to. I heard the unspoken words as clearly as if she had shouted them. Now, you belong to them. Chapter 2. The 100 Who Came at Dawn. I did not sleep. How could I? Every sound inside the cottage became a warning. The wind scraping branches across the roof. The old timber settling in the cold. Mice rustling behind the walls. Each noise made me flinch. Each one sent my heart crashing against my ribs, as though it were trying to flee before the wolves arrived. Grandmother brewed chamomile and Valium tea, the blend she used to calm panic, but my hands shook so violently that the cup clicked against its saucer. A small, fragile rhythm of fear. Drink, she ordered. Her voice was gentler than usual. Grandmother became gentle only when things were truly terrible. What will they do? I asked. The tea tasted of flowers, damp earth, and something bitter I could not name. When they come, what will they do to me? I do not know. Grandmother lowered herself into her chair, but she did not reach for her knitting. Her hands rested motionless in her lap. That frightened me more than any answer could have. Grandmother's hands were never still. Shifter law is not like ours, she continued. Their debts are complicated, blood debts most of all. But I saved his life. Yes. Then they should be grateful. They should thank me and leave. Grandmother laughed softly. The sound was dry as autumn leaves. Child, when has gratitude ever been simple? I stared at her. You saved someone they clearly expected to die. Perhaps someone they wanted dead. You interfered with an outcome already decided. She gestured toward the window, where the black sky had begun to fade into a deep, bruised blue. Now they must decide what your interference means. I set the cup down before it slipped from my hands. You think they will kill me? I think they will claim you. She met my eyes without flinching. There is a difference. Then she added, almost too quietly to hear, not always a better one, but a difference. The first howl came as the sun broke across the horizon. It was nothing like the chorus from the night before. This howl was alone, commanding. It entered my chest and seemed to close a hand around my heart. Every instinct in my body responded with the same terrified command: submit. The sound belonged to something ancient, something powerful enough that even the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then the others answered. One voice at first, then 2, then 10, and finally, 100 wolves lifted their howls to the newborn light. The sound surrounded our cottage from every direction, a circle tightening, a noose made of voices. They are here, I whispered. Grandmother rose, smoothed her skirts, and walked toward the door. Then we will greet them with dignity. Grandmother, with dignity, Collins. She used my full name. There would be no argument. You are a healer. You acted with honor. You will not cower before them. Then she opened the door. Wolves filled the clearing. I had seen shifters before. Everyone in Millbrook had. They sometimes came to market in human form, trading furs, meat, and medicines for goods their packs could not make. They were beautiful when they wore human skin, and terrifying. We had learned to lower our eyes, to step aside, to never stand between a shifter and the direction they had chosen to walk. But I had never seen so many gathered together. And I had never seen them like this. A living sea of fur, muscle, and gleaming eyes covered the clearing. Gray wolves, brown wolves, black wolves. Some were no larger than hunting hounds. Others stood tall enough to meet a horse eye to eye. They sat in perfect silence, arranged in circles around our home. Every one of them was staring at me. At the center, nearest the cottage, sat a wolf who made the one I had saved look almost small. He was pure white. His fur caught the dawn so brightly that looking at him hurt my eyes. Scars crossed his muzzle and shoulders, proof of battles survived, enemies defeated, and years spent refusing death. But his eyes held me, blue as winter ice, sharp enough to feel like a blade passing beneath my skin. An alpha. He had to be. Authority poured from him without movement or sound. Every other wolf turned subtly toward him, the way compass needles surrendered to north. The white wolf studied me for a long moment. Then his gaze shifted to grandmother. He lowered his head by the smallest degree. Respect. Recognition. Grandmother returned the gesture. Alpha Grayson, she said, you honor us with your presence. The white wolf began to change. I had heard stories about shifting. I had imagined bones breaking, flesh twisting, an animal becoming a man. The truth was stranger. It did not look like transformation. It looked like revelation, as though the world peeled back one layer of reality and exposed the shape that had always been hidden beneath. Where the wolf had sat, a man now stood. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with silver hair that caught the morning light, just as his white fur had. His face seemed carved from stone, iron, and old wars. The scars remained. Thin white lines crossed his chest and arms. One vicious mark ran from his temple to his jaw. Someone had brought him clothing, dark trousers and a loose shirt, but he carried himself as though dressed for a coronation. "Ruby," he said. His voice was gravel dragged through smoke. "It has been many years." "Not nearly enough," grandmother replied. "And if you have brought 100 wolves merely to frighten an old woman and her granddaughter, your judgment has worsened with age." I nearly grabbed her and dragged her back inside. How could she speak to him that way? But the corner of Alpha Grayson's mouth moved. Almost a smile. "You have not changed. Neither have you. Still bringing an army when a conversation would be sufficient." "This conversation requires an army." His icy gaze settled on me. "Your granddaughter saved someone last night." My throat tightened. "I found a wounded wolf," I said. "I did not know who he was." "You saved my son." The words struck like stones dropped into still water. Everything I believed about the previous night shifted outward in widening circles. His son. The dying black wolf had been the Alpha's son. "Then you should be thanking her," grandmother snapped, "not surrounding her home as though she committed a crime." "Our thanks are the reason we came." Alpha Grayson stepped forward. Despite myself, I stepped back. He noticed. Something passed through those winter blue eyes. Disappointment, perhaps, or understanding. "My son was being punished," he said. "He challenged the heir of another Alpha and violated treaty law. The wounds he received were intended to kill him. That was the judgment." The ground seemed to drop beneath me. I interfered with an execution. "You saved his life," the Alpha answered, his voice revealing nothing, "and that has created a problem." He took another step toward me. "The debt my son owes you cannot be measured. We call it a life debt." His gaze hardened. "And a life debt must be answered." "I do not want payment. I only wanted to help him. That is not how our law works." Alpha Grayson lifted one hand. 2 wolves rose from the inner circle and advanced. They shifted while walking. 1 woman, 1 man, both lean and dangerous, both carrying the same golden eyes I had seen in the black wolf. "You tied yourself to him," the Alpha said, "and through him, to us. Your intention does not change the bond." The 2 shifters stopped beside him. The woman inhaled slowly. "She smells of him." "Because I treated his wounds," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. "He was bleeding to death behind my home." "She did not understand what she was doing," grandmother said. "She is human. Your laws are not hers." "She lives at the border," the male shifter replied, his voice colder than the Alpha's. "She knows enough to fear us. She knows actions here have consequences." Alpha Grayson raised his hand again. Both fell silent immediately. "The law is clear," he said. "You saved my son. Until the debt is satisfied, he owes you his life, his service, his protection, and his loyalty." I struggled to understand. "So what does that mean? He works for me? Carries wood? Repairs the cottage?" The female shifter made a sound that might have been laughter. "This is not servitude, girl. It is a bond." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Where you go, he follows. Your enemies become his enemies. Your battles become his battles. Your survival becomes his first duty, even before his duty to the pack." "That is madness. I do not want. What you want does not erase what you chose." Alpha Grayson's voice cut through mine like a blade. "You made a decision last night. Decisions carry weight." His expression remained mercilessly calm. "This is the weight of yours." "There is another way," grandmother said. Her voice had become too quiet. Every gaze turned toward her. "The pack can absorb the debt," she continued. "Take the girl as one of your own. Release your son from an individual life bond by binding Collins to the entire pack." "No." The answer tore from me at once. "Grandmother, no. It would require you to leave your home," Alpha Grayson said, watching me closely. "You would live in pack territory, learn our customs, and submit to our laws. She is human. The male shifter objected. She cannot change. She would contribute nothing. She is a healer, grandmother said. A capable one. Her chin lifted. Better than capable. She carries the gift. Whether you can sense it yet or not, your people have need of what she can do. We have healers. None like her. Pride hardened grandmother's voice. She dragged a body back from death using herbs and will. How many among your healers can claim the same? Alpha Grayson studied me as though I were a riddle he intended to solve. Can you do it again? The healing? Yes. If I have the right supplies, if the damage has not gone too far, show me. He moved before I could react. One moment he stood several paces away. The next, a knife flashed in his hand. He dragged the blade across his palm. Blood rose immediately and spilled between us in bright drops. Heal it, he ordered, holding the wounded hand toward me. Now. My fear vanished beneath instinct. I caught his wrist and pulled his palm closer. The cut was clean, deep, and deliberate. The work of someone who knew exactly how much damage he could cause without crippling himself. It needs stitching, I said. It will scar if... You have 30 seconds. I ran inside. My hands shook as I seized the herb basket, fresh yarrow paste, clean linen, and the small jar of honey we used against infection. Grandmother had already prepared the paste. Had she known this test would come? Outside, I rinsed the Alpha's palm at the pump, packed the cut with the yellow-green mixture, spread a thin layer of honey over it, and bound it tightly. The treatment took perhaps 2 minutes. Alpha Grayson never looked away. When I tied the final knot, he flexed his fingers. Then he unwound the cloth. The wound was closing. Not completely, but much faster than flesh should have healed. The bleeding had already stopped. Impossible, the female shifter breathed. We heal quickly, the man said, but not that quickly. And she is human, the woman added. She should not be able to do this. She has the gift, Alpha Grayson said. His voice was quiet now, certain. He looked at me differently, not as a frightened girl, but as something rare, something useful, something to be calculated. Old magic, he murmured, the kind carried through bloodlines. Beside me, grandmother became very still. Here is my offer, the Alpha said. Come with us, live in pack territory, learn our ways, and use your healing in service to Silverpine. He turned his palm upward, examining the impossible seam where the knife had cut him. In return, my son's debt will become the pack's burden. He will be freed from individual bondage to you. You will receive food, shelter, protection, and access to resources far beyond anything this cottage can provide. And if I refuse? Then my son remains bound to you. His eyes found mine. Wherever you go, he must follow. Whatever danger reaches you, he must face. You will have a shifter at your side for the rest of your life. He paused. And every enemy he has made, and there are many, will become yours as well. It was not a choice. It was a trap wearing the shape of 2 doors. I looked at grandmother. She nodded once. Permission or surrender. Perhaps both. How long? I asked. If I go with you, how long must I remain? Until the debt is satisfied. Months, perhaps. Years. Something in Alpha Grayson's face softened by the smallest degree. We are not monsters, girl. You will be treated fairly. You will be fed, housed, and protected. You will have freedom within our territory. Then his expression hardened again. But you will belong to us. Belong to us. The words settled inside me with a weight I could not yet measure. I thought of the black wolf in the forest, of his golden eyes following every movement of my hands, of the resignation in them before I forced him to live. Had he known there was a healer near my home? Had he deliberately crawled toward the border? No. The blood had been too real. His death had been too close. Whatever had begun between us had started with chance, and ended with an impossible choice. I will come, I heard myself say. Grandmother's fingers tightened around mine. But I want to see him first. Alpha Grayson's eyebrows rose. My son? I need to confirm he is recovering properly. You are negotiating. I am being a healer. I lifted my chin and borrowed every ounce of grandmother's fearlessness I could find. If I am going to serve your pack, then I will do it correctly. That begins with examining my patient. For several long seconds, Alpha Grayson only stared. Then he laughed. It was a rough sound, as though his throat had nearly forgotten how to make it, but it was real. You have courage, he said. Foolish courage, but courage. He looked toward the female shifter. Bring Kieran forward. The wolves parted. Through the opening came the black wolf I had saved. He looked better. So much better that relief nearly weakened my knees. The wounds I had packed were already closing, reduced to furious red lines beneath his fur. He could stand. He could walk, though each step remained careful. He had survived the night. Because of me. Our eyes met. Something moved between us. Recognition. Gratitude. And beneath both, a deeper pull I could not name. It felt like the first line of a story I had never agreed to enter. He is healing well, I said, forcing myself into the calm voice of a professional. The wounds must be cleaned and redressed every day for at least a week. No running, no fighting, and no shifting if it can be avoided. The internal damage was severe. Do you hear that, Kieran? Alpha Grayson asked, dark amusement entering his voice. Your healer gives you orders. The black wolf lowered his head toward me. An acknowledgement. Several wolves around him shifted uneasily at the gesture. 1 hour, Alpha Grayson said. Gather what you need, say your farewells, then we leave. His body shimmered, and the white wolf stood where the man had been. One by one, the 100 wolves withdrew into the trees. They did not leave. They simply gave us space. They were waiting. Grandmother took my hand. Come inside, child. We must speak. I followed her toward the cottage, the only home I had ever known. But before crossing the threshold, I looked back. Kieran sat alone at the edge of the clearing. The black wolf was still watching me, and somehow, I knew he would never stop. Not now. Not ever. Chapter 3. The Price of Silver. Grandmother's hands remained steady as she packed my bag. Only the thin line of her mouth betrayed the tears she refused to shed. I had seen her cry twice in my life. Once when my mother died. Once when my father followed her a year later. She would not cry now. She would not place that final burden on my shoulders as I left. The blue vial, she said, wrapping it in cloth before tucking it between my dresses. Use it carefully. 3 drops in water will break almost any fever. Her eyes lifted to mine. 4 drops will stop a heart. Grandmother, the silver tin contains moon petal salve. Use it on wounds that refuse to close by natural means. Then she placed a small leather pouch into my palm. And this is Rawthorn. I stared at it. Grandmother had never allowed me near Rawthorn. It was too dangerous, too absolute. You will know when it is needed, she said. When someone cannot be saved and pain is all that remains, it grants peace. The pouch suddenly felt unbearably heavy. The fact that she was entrusting it to me meant one thing. She did not believe I would come home. I will return, I said, but my voice cracked around the words. This is temporary. Once the debt is settled, I will come back. And if it is not? I had no answer. Grandmother cupped my face in her weathered hands. Collins, listen to me. You are entering a world that does not obey human rules. You will witness things that make no sense to you. They may demand choices that conflict with everything I have taught you. Her fingers tightened gently against my cheeks. But you will remember this. Her gaze became fierce. Healing is healing, no matter who lies beneath your hands. Human or shifter, friend or enemy. Pain remains pain. Suffering remains suffering. You treat it all the same. Even if they are cruel? Especially then. She did not hesitate. Cruelty is often born from pain. Not always, but often. You heal the body first. Her voice softened. Sometimes, if the goddess is merciful, you may also heal the wound that taught them to become cruel. A knock sounded at the door. Not violent, but firm enough to tell us our hour was over. Grandmother pulled me into her arms. She smelled of dried herbs, smoke, damp wood, and home. "You are stronger than you know," she whispered, "and braver than you believe." Then she leaned back, and her smile sharpened like broken glass. "If they hurt you, if they betray you, come for me with that knife hidden beneath your mattress." I blinked. "You knew about that?" "I know everything that happens beneath my roof." Her eyes flashed. "And I will come for them with something far worse than a knife." The female shifter from the clearing waited outside. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Tall, lean, made of hard muscle and old scars. Every mark on her skin suggested she had earned her rank through violence and survived every challenge meant to take it from her. Her golden eyes swept over me without warmth. "I am Vera," she said. It did not sound like an introduction. It sounded like a fact I was expected to remember. Beta female. I answer only to the alpha and his heir, and apparently I am now responsible for keeping you alive. I did not ask for a bodyguard. No, you asked for nothing. Her gaze hardened. That is part of what makes this so irritating. Before I could object, she seized my bag and slung it across one shoulder as though it contained feathers. "Come, the pack does not wait." I looked back at the cottage one final time. Grandmother stood within the doorway, framed by firelight. She looked small, old, and utterly indestructible. She raised one hand. Not a wave, a blessing. Then Vera pulled me toward the trees, and my home disappeared behind us. The pack had gathered again beneath the forest canopy, still nearly 100 strong, and still wearing wolf form. They parted as we approached, opening a path that led away from Millbrook and deeper into their territory. Alpha Grayson stood at the front, his white fur bright among the shadows. Beside him waited Kieran, the black wolf I had saved. Even wounded, he carried himself with unmistakable authority. His steps were careful, but his head remained high. He was not merely the Alpha's son. He was a creature raised from birth to command. "She comes willingly," Vera announced so every wolf could hear, "bound by debt and oath, under the Alpha's protection." A ripple moved through the pack. Not acceptance, not approval. Something more wary. I was human, an outsider, but I was also the healer who had saved their future Alpha's life. Kieran came toward me. The bandages I had wrapped around him were gone. His body had already closed most of the wounds into furious red scars that looked weeks old instead of hours. Shifter healing was astonishing. He stopped so near that heat rolled from his body through the cold morning air. Then he did something that silenced every creature in the forest. He bowed his head and pressed his muzzle into my open palm. "What is he doing?" I whispered. Vera's expression became unreadable. "Publicly acknowledging the debt. Is that not expected?" A nod would be expected. Perhaps spoken thanks after he shifts. Her jaw tightened. "Not this." "What does this mean?" "It is a subordinate gesture." Her gaze flicked toward the wolves around us. "He is the Alpha's heir. He should never display submission to a human." But Kieran did not appear to care about what the pack expected. His golden eyes held mine, and what I saw there stole the breath from my lungs. It was not gratitude. It was not submission. It was possession. Perhaps he believed he belonged to me. Perhaps he believed I belonged to him. Perhaps the bond had already convinced him we belonged to one another. The hierarchy did not matter. What mattered was that Kieran had decided the connection between us reached beyond pack law. "We move," Alpha Grayson commanded. The moment shattered. "Collins will walk with Kieran and Vera, standard formation for everyone else." His icy eyes swept over me. And someone give the girl a cloak before she freezes halfway home. A young wolf stepped from the group and shifted into a lanky boy. Without speaking, he handed me a fur-lined cloak that smelled of pine, cold air, and something wild. I wrapped it around myself gratefully. Then the pack began to move. They flowed through the forest like dark water. Nearly 100 wolves passed between roots and trees without snapping a branch or disturbing the undergrowth. Kieran remained close to my left. Vera walked on my right. Both continuously watched the shadows, the branches, and every empty space between the trees. They were not merely traveling, they were guarding me. "What are you looking for?" I asked, after we had walked for some time. "Everything," Vera replied, without turning. "We are crossing neutral ground. It lies between our territory and the lands of 3 other packs. It is supposed to be safe." Her mouth twisted. But supposed to be means nothing when someone wishes to send a message. A message to whom? She finally glanced at me. "You truly know nothing about our world." "No. At least you are honest." Vera looked toward Kieran, who moved several paces ahead with an uneven gait. He did more than challenge another alpha's heir. He humiliated him, drew blood before witnesses. The other pack demanded revenge. They were the ones who executed him? They attempted to. Our packs accepted that punishment under treaty law. Her eyes returned to me. "Then Kieran survived, because you interfered with the sentence." "I was saving a life. You were disrupting justice." The words landed hard. Vera's expression held something almost like pity. "You did not simply rescue one wolf girl. You disturbed the balance of power among 4 packs. You created enemies before you even knew their names." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. "I only wanted to help." "Noble and foolish." She shrugged. "They are often the same thing." Her gaze returned to Kieran. He knew where he was crawling when he moved toward human land. He knew a healer lived in your cottage. He knew there was a chance someone would find him. "You believe he planned it?" "I believe he is his father's son. Alpha Grayson rarely leaves anything to chance." Vera paused. "But I also know those wounds were genuine. Damien, the heir who punished him, enjoys suffering. Kieran may have planned to be discovered." Her voice darkened. "I doubt he intended to arrive quite so close to death." We walked on in silence. The forest changed around us. The trees grew wider, older, and taller, their branches weaving overhead until the sky became only scattered fragments of light. These woods felt ancient. Older than humans. Older than shifters. Older, perhaps, than the first creature who had looked at the world and decided everything needed a name. "We are entering pack territory," Vera said quietly. "From this point forward, you are under absolute protection. Anyone who harms you will answer to the Alpha." "That sounds reassuring." "It should not." She stopped. "Absolute protection also means absolute law." "What laws?" "Do not challenge another shifter's dominance unless you are prepared to fight. Do not enter the Alpha's private residence without invitation. Do not disobey a direct command from someone above you in rank." "Which is?" "Nearly everyone." I exhaled slowly. "Anything else?" "Do not attempt to leave without permission." Her gaze sharpened. "And most importantly," she turned fully toward me, "never lie." I waited for her to explain. "We smell it," she said. "Fear, adrenaline, the changes in breath and blood. Every lie alters the body." "You can truly detect every lie?" "Not perfectly, but often enough." Her expression remained merciless. "A wolf may kill another in a fair fight and eventually be forgiven. Lie about your intentions, and you may be exiled or executed. That seems extreme. That is pack law." She resumed walking. "You agreed to come. Now you must live with what that agreement means." The trees opened without warning, and the sight beyond them stopped me in place. I had expected a crude settlement. Cabins, smoke, perhaps rough fences and muddy paths. Instead, silver pine appeared to have grown from the forest itself. Stone and living wood blended so naturally that I could not tell where the trees ended and architecture began. At the center stood a building 3 stories high, its broad windows catching the late morning sun and scattering amber light across the clearing. Smaller homes gathered around it like children around a parent. And everywhere, there were shifters. Some walked in human form. Others moved as wolves. A few existed in the strange space between. Human faces with wolf ears, human bodies ending in clawed paws, eyes that changed color with every breath. Children chased one another through the village, their shapes flickering from child to wolf and back like candle flames in wind. "Welcome to Silver Pine," Vera said, "home of the Grayson pack." She looked at me without humor. "And your prison for the foreseeable future." "My new home," I corrected. "Same thing." She pointed to the enormous central structure. "That is the Alpha's residence. Once you have been placed, you will meet the senior council. They will assess your usefulness and determine where you belong in the hierarchy." "I am human. I have no place in a wolf hierarchy." Vera laughed bitterly. "Everyone has a place in the hierarchy." Her golden eyes measured me. "The only question is how low yours will be." As we approached the building, attention followed me from every direction. Curiosity, confusion, hostility. Children pointed and whispered. An older woman spat into the dirt as I passed. "Ignore them," Vera said. "They will test you. They need to know how easily you break. And if I break, then your life here will become very difficult." At the bottom of the entrance steps, Vera turned toward Kieran. "You are dismissed. Go to the healers and let them examine your wounds properly. I will take Collins from here." A low rumble came from Kieran's chest. "That was not a request," Vera snapped. "You are injured. You are heir to this pack. You will not pretend to be a human girl's bodyguard while infection eats through your ribs." Kieran growled again, more insistently. "Goddess, preserve me," Vera muttered. Then she looked at me. "He wants to remain with you." "Why?" "The debt bond is already taking hold. He feels responsible for your safety." "Tell him I will be fine. Tell him yourself." I turned toward the massive black wolf. He had nearly died beneath my hands. He had bowed to me before an entire pack. Now he stood stubbornly between me and the entrance, as though leaving me alone would violate something inside him. "Go have your wounds checked," I said. "I will be safe. Vera will not allow anyone to harm me." Kieran held my gaze, long enough that I felt the strange bond between us tighten. Then, at last, he turned away and moved toward another building, still favoring the side that had been torn open. "That was easier than expected," Vera said. "Either he respects you, or the pain is worse than he admits." She led me inside. The interior was even more impossible than the village. The ceiling rose several stories above us. Living pillars still covered in bark supported the structure, as though ancient trees had been persuaded to grow exactly where the builders required them. Sunlight poured through high windows and painted intricate patterns across the stone floor. "Wait here," Vera ordered, pointing to a bench near the entrance. "I must tell the Alpha you have arrived." She began to walk away, then looked back. "Do not wander, do not touch anything, and do not speak to anyone unless they speak first." Then her footsteps disappeared into the corridors. I was alone. Or almost. Pack members passed through the hall, slowing to look at me. Some drew closer simply to scent the air around me. Others ignored me with deliberate contempt. One young man approached. His nostrils flared. "You smell like him," he said. "Like Kieran. Blood and herbs." He leaned into my space until the back of my neck prickled. "Like claimed property." "I am not property. You are something." He began circling me. His eyes shifted from brown to gold and back again. "But what?" "I am a healer. We already have healers." He stopped directly in front of me. "Better ones. Shifters who understand our bodies. What use is a human? Enough use that your alpha brought me here. His hand snapped around my wrist. He did not grip hard enough to injure me, only hard enough to remind me that he could. Careful, little human, he murmured. That mouth will get you killed. Remove your hand. The voice behind me was calm, cold, absolute. The young man released me as though my skin had suddenly burned him. His face lost all color. Beta, I was only what? A woman stepped into view. Threatening someone under alpha protection? Testing a boundary you were explicitly forbidden to cross? The young man lowered his head. She appeared older than Vera, perhaps in her 50s, with dark hair threaded in silver and scars that spoke of a lifetime spent surviving. But her eyes revealed her true danger, winter blue, the same color as Alpha Grayson's. Go find useful work, Garrett, she ordered, before I assign you work on the training grounds, under my personal supervision. Garrett fled. The woman watched him disappear, then turned to me, her expression softened by a fraction. I apologize. Garrett is young, foolish, and convinced his importance exceeds reality. She offered her hand. I am Lyra, the Alpha's sister, second in command after my brother. I accepted her grip carefully. It was firm, but not intended to intimidate. And apparently, she added, I am your new advocate. Why do I need an advocate? Because someone must teach you how to survive here. Her mouth curved faintly. Vera is capable, but patience is not among her virtues. I, however, have survived 63 years inside this pack by being very, very patient. Lyra gestured toward the corridor. Come, we have much to discuss before you face the council. Her icy gaze settled on me, and everything I teach you may determine whether you leave that chamber alive or in pieces. I followed her deeper into the Alpha's residence, away from the entrance and the judging eyes of the pack. With every step, the weight of my choice settled more heavily around me. A cloak woven from consequences. I had saved a life. Now I had to discover whether that mercy would cost me my own. Chapter 4. The Council of Teeth and Silver. Lyra led me through corridors that twisted like the inside of a living creature. Nothing followed a straight line. Walls curved, stairways narrowed and opened again. Doorways appeared where no doorway should have fit. The design felt beautiful and deliberate. A place built to welcome those who belonged and confuse anyone who did not. As we passed open rooms, I caught fragments of pack life, elders patiently teaching children how to hold one form without slipping into another. Warriors sparring in human bodies with such violence that I looked away after one strike. Women weaving ceremonial cloth from threads that flashed like liquid silver. The council meets in 1 hour, Lyra said without slowing. That gives us just enough time to make you presentable and teach you how not to die within the first 5 minutes. I thought I was under Alpha protection. You are. She glanced over her shoulder, one eyebrow raised. That prevents them from killing you directly. Directly? There are many ways to destroy someone without spilling blood. Words become weapons here. An insult can begin a war. A hesitation can become proof of weakness. Her gaze sharpened. And if the council sees weakness in you, they will test that weakness again and again until something breaks. She stopped before a wooden door and pushed it open. The room beyond looked as though someone had prepared it in advance. A bed covered in clean linen, a wash basin, a wardrobe filled with simple, carefully made clothing. One wide window overlooked the endless trees of pack territory. This is yours, Lyra said, for however long you remain. I placed my bag on the bed. The morning felt as though it had lasted an entire week. The door locks from inside, she added. I advise you not to use it. Why? A locked door suggests secrets. Secrets create suspicion. Suspicion becomes paranoia. And paranoia usually ends in blood. I exhaled and looked around the unfamiliar room. What does the council want from me? To decide whether you are an asset or a liability. Lyra opened the wardrobe and removed a forest green dress, sturdy boots, and a fitted leather vest. They will question your healing, your training, and your intentions. Some will intimidate you. Others will pretend kindness in order to loosen your tongue. She laid the clothing across the bed. Every one of them will be listening for lies. Vera said you can smell them. We smell the body's response to them. Fear, stress, adrenaline, changes in breath and skin. It sounds imperfect. It is. Lyra met my gaze. It is also accurate enough to get you killed. What should I do? Tell the truth with brutal consistency, even when it makes you appear foolish, even when it exposes fear. They will respect an ugly truth more than a beautiful evasion. I picked up the dress. The fabric was soft and slightly worn. It had belonged to someone before me. Whose room was this? Pain crossed Lyra's face so quickly I almost thought I imagined it. My daughter's. The words came flat. She died 3 years ago. A hunting accident. I am sorry. Do not be. Lyra's expression sealed itself again. She died doing what she loved, with her pack around her. There are worse ways to leave this world. She moved toward the door. Change. Wash your face. You smell of blood, forest, and fear. Her hand paused on the frame. And a council responds to prey scent exactly as wolves always do. With hunger? With hunger. I will return in 40 minutes. She left before I could ask what kind of hunting accident could kill a shifter. Creatures stronger than humans, faster than natural predators, and capable of healing wounds that would have ended ordinary lives. I changed quickly. The green dress hung a little loose across my waist but fit well enough. The boots felt almost made for me. At the basin, I scrubbed my face and hands. The water turned pink. Kieran's blood spiraled away from my skin, the visible proof of a choice that had altered everything. A knock sounded. Too early for Lyra. Come in, I called, bracing myself. The door opened. Kieran stepped into the room. He was human now. It was the first time I had seen the man hidden inside the black wolf. And goddess help me, he was beautiful enough to ruin every scrap of professional distance I had carefully built. He was tall, his shoulders broad beneath a loose dark shirt. Black hair brushed his shoulders in untamed waves. The golden eyes were unchanged, watchful, intense, filled with amber flecks that caught the light. His face was made of sharp planes and strong bone. His mouth looked as though smiles were rare things he did not often permit himself. The wounds remained visible. Angry red seams crossed his ribs, shoulder, and forearm. They were healing too quickly. And badly. You should not be here, I said, retreating into the safety of professional irritation. Those wounds need cleaning and proper dressing. Where are the pack healers? Occupied. His voice was deep and rough, as though he had not used it in a long time. And I do not trust them as I trust you. You do not know me. I know you saved my life when you had no reason to. He moved closer. I noticed the slight tension along his right side. The internal damage remained. Every step cost him more than he wanted me to see. You could have left me in that forest, he continued. It would have been safer. I am a healer. I do not abandon wounded patients. I also know what you used. He stopped before me. Your grandmother's red bottle. Lyra told me what it costs, and what it means. It means I did my duty. No. He leaned closer, and the gold in his eyes seemed to burn. It means you did what you always do. I held my ground. Most healers have boundaries, he said. Lines they refuse to cross. Lives they decide are not worth the price. Everyone has limits. Then I have not discovered yours. His fingers lifted, stopping just short of the bandage around my wrist where Alpha Grayson's blood had stained the cloth. You healed my father without hesitation. You touched an alpha without fear. I was demonstrating my usefulness. You were demonstrating that you are either extraordinarily brave or catastrophically reckless. His hand fell. The council will want to know which. He studied me. So do I. I stepped back, forcing space between us. His attention was too concentrated. It felt as though he were trying to open me and read what lay beneath my bones. Why are you truly here, Kieran? Your aunt will return soon, and I doubt she will approve of you entering my room alone. I came to warn you. The intensity in his face changed. The council has 7 members. My father, Lyra, Vera, 3 pack elders. He paused. And Damien. Cold spread through me. The heir who tried to kill you? The same. Why is he permitted inside your council? Treaty obligation. His pack and ours share hunting land, water, and trade routes. Officially, we are allies. Kieran's jaw tightened. That grants him a seat. And he will oppose me. He will do more than oppose you. Kieran crossed to the window and looked over Silverpine. He will undermine you, discredit your healing, convince the council that protecting you creates more danger than value. Because if they reject me, I become vulnerable to his revenge again. Kieran turned. Exactly. He cannot touch you while my father's protection holds. But if the council removes it, Damien will come for me. He will kill you? Kieran's expression became unnaturally still. He will do worse than kill you. The words were delivered without drama. That made them more frightening. He enjoys taking his time, Kieran continued. He likes turning pain into an example. By saving me, you humiliated him before every pack involved in the treaty. His golden eyes darkened. He will never forgive that. My knees weakened, and I sat on the edge of the bed. What do I do? Become useful, become impressive. His voice sharpened. Make the council believe your value is greater than the political danger of keeping you alive. He came closer again. And when Damien provokes you, and he will, do not answer with anger. He wants aggression. He wants you to threaten him. He wants an excuse. I am human. I cannot challenge him. No. Kieran's gaze held mine. But I can. Understanding moved through me. That is what he wants, Kieran said. If you show any sign of belonging to me, or of me belonging to you, he can force another challenge. To the death. Yes. And in your condition, I would lose. He spoke without emotion. I would die. The certainty in his voice chilled me more than fear would have. So we must be careful before the council, he said. No familiarity, no instinctive protection. I can speak for you as the Alpha's heir, but I cannot reveal personal investment. His eyes narrowed. Do you understand? I did. Whatever had formed between us beneath the trees, whatever invisible chain linked healer and patient, had to remain hidden. Unspoken. Denied. I understand, I said. Kieran nodded and turned toward the door. Then he stopped. The riddle. What? The one you asked while you were stitching me in the forest. I had nearly forgotten. I had been trying to keep him conscious, to give his mind something besides pain. It was an old riddle grandmother taught me as a child. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening, yet can also walk with no legs at all? You never answered, I said. Because I did not know. He glanced back at me. I still do not. The gold in his eyes softened by the smallest degree. But when this is over, when we are both still alive, tell me. Then he left. The door closed quietly behind him. I remained seated, troubled by the certainty that something important had just passed between us. Something neither of us fully understood. Lyra returned exactly 40 minutes after she had left. Her timing was as precise as a blade. She examined me from head to toe and nodded. Better. You look almost as though you belong here. Even though I do not. Precisely. Kieran came to see me. Her eyes sharpened. Did he? He warned me about Damien. Good. Some of the tension left her face. That means he is thinking strategically instead of emotionally. She gestured toward the hall. Come, it is time. As we walked, Lyra gave instructions without pause. You do not speak unless addressed. You remain standing. You do not take a chair. Because sitting implies equality, and you have not earned equality. She glanced at me approvingly. Keep your gaze lowered, not in surrender, in respect. Learn the difference. The corridors descended deeper into the structure. The air grew cooler, heavier. Stone and earth pressed around us until I felt as though we were entering the heart of the mountain itself. At last, we stopped before a door of dark wood reinforced with real silver. The metal had been shaped into intricate knots and symbols I did not recognize, perhaps protective marks, perhaps warnings. Ready? Lyra asked. No. Good. Her hand settled on the door. That is honest. She looked directly at me. Remember 3 things: truth, respect, and never let them smell your fear, even when terror is the only thing you feel. She opened the door. The council chamber was circular, carved from stone far older than the building surrounding it. 7 chairs formed a half moon. All were occupied. 7 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Alpha Grayson sat at the center in human form. Torchlight gleamed along his silver hair. Lyra moved to the chair at his right. Vera sat to his left, her expression blank but her body alert. 3 senior pack members occupied the next seats, 2 men and 1 woman, all old enough to carry the careful stillness of survivors. Then I saw Damien. He sat at the far end, slightly separated from the others. He was perhaps the most beautiful man I had ever seen. Golden hair shone like trapped sunlight. His features were so perfect they seemed carved rather than born. His smile might have been charming, if not for the cruelty living in his pale blue eyes. This was the man who had opened Kieran's body with precise, fatal wounds. The man who would gladly do worse to me if given permission. Collins of Millbrook, Alpha Grayson said. His voice filled the stone chamber. You stand before the council of the Silver Pine Pack. You were brought here under the terms of a life debt after saving the life of my heir. He regarded me without softness. This council will determine your value, your position, and your fate. A pause. Do you accept its authority? Truth. Lyra had told me truth was the only safe ground. I accept the council's authority within reason, I answered. A murmur passed through the room. I am not Pack, and I cannot pretend your every law already binds my conscience, but I respect your customs, and I will follow them so long as they do not violate my duty as a healer. Several council members exchanged glances. Interesting, one elder man said. She begins by negotiating limitations. She is establishing principles, Lyra replied. That is not the same thing. Then let us examine those principles. Damien leaned forward. His voice was smooth as honey poured over shattered glass. When you found Kieran dying, did you know his identity? No. Did you know he had challenged another Alpha's heir? No. Did you know he had broken treaty law and received a lawful sentence? No. His smile widened. Then you saved a criminal, a man condemned for violating sacred law. His eyes glittered. Does that not make you part of his crime? I saved a dying creature, I said carefully. I possessed neither the knowledge nor the authority to judge Pack law. Convenient. I know only the law of healing. Treat suffering when you find it. Preserve life when possible. Do not create harm. Even if the life you preserve threatens peace between 4 packs? Even then, every instinct demanded that I lower my gaze. I looked directly into his eyes instead. I am a healer, I said, not a judge, not an executioner. Damien's smile vanished. If you wanted Kieran dead, you should have ensured I could not find him. Silence struck the chamber. Then Alpha Grayson laughed. A sound of genuine surprise. She has teeth after all, he said. I was beginning to wonder. Teeth that will get her killed, Damien replied coldly. She is arrogant, disrespectful, and human. What value can she possibly offer this pack? That is what we are here to determine, the senior woman said. She turned toward me. Collins, demonstrate your knowledge. How would you treat silver poisoning in a shifter? It was a test. Silver burned shifter bodies from within. I had never treated it, but grandmother had taught me what must be done. Induce vomiting immediately, I answered. Then administer activated charcoal to absorb what remains in the stomach. Milk thistle tincture to protect the liver. Cold compresses across the abdomen to slow circulation and absorption. I hesitated. The room noticed. Truth, I reminded myself. If silver has already entered the blood, a partial transfusion may be necessary. The senior woman's eyes narrowed. Explain. Remove contaminated blood and replace it with clean blood from a compatible donor. It is dangerous, but once silver reaches the heart, it may be the only treatment that works. Another silence followed. The elder woman nodded slowly. Correct, more than correct, that is advanced knowledge. She leaned forward. Who taught you transfusion? My grandmother. She learned from her grandmother, who learned from the old healers before the packs controlled these lands. I did not mention that grandmother's true teacher had been a shifter healer during a brief alliance between our peoples. Some truths were not lies. They were simply dangerous when given to the wrong listener. One more question, Damien said. His tone became almost casual. Do you feel anything for Kieran? My body went still. Anything beyond professional duty? The trap was perfect. Say yes, and Damien could claim a personal bond existed, enough to force Kieran into another challenge. Say no, and I might weaken the very life debt keeping me alive. I feel responsible for his recovery, I said, as I would for any patient whose life depended on my work. Damien watched every breath. His wounds were severe. If infection or internal damage destroys what I repaired, then my effort was wasted. I let the truth settle before continuing. That matters to me, but it is not personal attachment. It is professional pride. Professional pride, Damien repeated. How sterile. That is part of what makes her useful, Lyra said. Pack loyalty does not distort her judgment. She treats according to need, not politics. She glanced toward the council. That is rare. The 7 members began speaking in voices too low for me to hear. I remained standing, forcing my breathing into a calm rhythm, while fear crawled beneath my skin. At last, Alpha Grayson lifted one hand. The room fell silent. The council has decided. He looked directly at me. Collins of Millbrook will remain under pack protection. She will serve as an auxiliary healer beneath the supervision of our primary medical staff. Relief moved through me so powerfully that my knees nearly weakened. She will be housed and fed. She will receive limited freedom within Silverpine territory. In exchange, she will provide healing when required, and submit to regular evaluation of her ability and loyalty. I could breathe again. Then Alpha Grayson said, however, relief turned to ice. She will perform a second duty. His gaze did not leave mine. As the healer who saved my heir, she is uniquely positioned to monitor his recovery. Each week she will report to this council regarding Kieran's physical condition, progress, and any changes that cause concern. I understood. They wanted me to watch him, to become a spy disguised as a healer. This arrangement will continue until the council is satisfied that he has fully recovered, Alpha Grayson concluded. I accept. The answer tasted bitter, but what choice had they truly given me? Then this council is concluded. Alpha Grayson stood, and the others rose with him. Lyra will escort you to the healing quarters and introduce you to our healers. He regarded me one final time. Welcome to Silverpine, Collins. His voice hardened. Do not make me regret allowing you to remain. The council members left one by one. Damien waited until the others had passed. As he moved beside me, he leaned close enough that his breath touched my ear. "You are clever," he whispered. A smile entered his voice. "But cleverness is not armor." My skin went cold. "Sooner or later, you will make a mistake." He stepped away. "And when you do, I will be waiting." Then he was gone. Lyra and I remained in the empty chamber. "You did well," she said. "Better than I expected." I was terrified. "Yes." Her expression softened. "But you did not let them use it." She placed one hand on my shoulder. "That is what matters." Then she turned toward the door. "Come, I will introduce you to the people who will decide whether you are truly competent or merely a fraud." She glanced back. "Pray it is the first. Our healers have no patience for the second." We climbed from the council chamber toward the light. I could not escape the feeling that I had survived one test only to be delivered directly into another. Somewhere inside the building, Kieran was recovering from the wounds he had earned by breaking pack law. Wounds that had brought me here. Wounds that connected us in ways I had only begun to understand. The riddle returned to me. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, 3 in the evening, and sometimes on no legs at all? I had never told Kieran the answer. A promise. A promise begins unsteadily. It learns to stand when strength is needed. When weakened, it leans upon support. And sometimes it has no legs at all. It exists only in words, in intention, in the narrow space between what is spoken and what is meant. I had made such a promise in the forest when I refused to let Kieran die. I had bound myself to consequences still hidden from me. Now I had to keep that promise alive long enough to learn its true price. Chapter 5. The Healing Quarters and Broken Trust. The healing quarters consumed the entire eastern wing of the Alpha's residence. I smelled them before Lyra opened the doors. Crushed herbs, antiseptic tinctures, sweat, blood, and beneath everything, the metallic scent of pain, something no amount of scrubbing could ever completely remove. "This is the heart of pack survival," Lyra said as she pushed through the double doors. "We hunt, we fight, we defend territory." Her gaze traveled across the room. "That means we bleed often. Our healers keep people alive long enough for shifter bodies to repair themselves." A pause. "And sometimes, they do far more." The room beyond was organized chaos. Beds filled the main chamber, separated by curtains. Several held patients. A young woman lay with bandages wound tightly around her ribs. An older man rested with one leg splinted and elevated. A child slept restlessly, while an adult kept watch nearby. Shelves covered the walls, crowded with supplies that immediately drew my eye. Familiar herbs beside plants I had never seen. Tinctures and salves in colored bottles, and surgical tools stained despite careful cleaning. "Rowan," Lyra called. "Stop hiding and meet our new auxiliary healer." A woman emerged from a back room, wiping her hands on a blood-marked apron. She appeared near 40. Auburn hair had been pulled into a severe knot. Sharp green eyes examined me in a single sweep. She was human. I knew from the absence of that effortless predatory grace every shifter carried. Rowan moved with care and intention, not animal fluidity. "This is the girl who saved Kieran?" she asked. Her voice was clipped and professional. "The same," Lyra replied. "The one who used Ruby's red bottle." "Yes." Rowan circled me as though I were an unfamiliar specimen. "You are young, too young for the skill required to perform that work." She stopped before me. "Who trained you?" "My grandmother, Ruby of Millbrook." "I know Ruby." Rowan crossed her arms. "She studied beneath old Sarah, who learned from hedge healers before the Great Purge." Her eyes narrowed. "That is a respectable lineage. It means you may know something more useful than folklore and hope." Then she gestured toward the occupied beds. "What do you see?" Another test. I went first to the young woman with the bandaged torso. Her breathing was shallow and carefully controlled. the way people breathed when every movement of the ribs caused pain. "May I examine you?" I asked. She looked toward Rowan. Rowan nodded. I lifted the blanket and inspected the wrapping. The bandage itself was clean and applied correctly. Beneath it, I smelled a herbal poultice. "Crushed ribs," I said. "At least 3, possibly 4. "Continue," Rowan ordered. "The binding is good, but the poultice is wrong. You used comfrey, which helps bone, but mixed it with calendula. Calendula is better for skin damage." I touched the edge of the cloth. For injuries beneath the surface, comfrey should be mixed with horsetail and nettle. They support bone repair and reduce deeper inflammation. Rowan's face gave nothing away. "Next." I moved to the older man. The break in his leg was obvious. The splint had been made well. But when I leaned close, another scent cut through the clean linen. "Sweet. Rotten. Infection," I said at once. "Early but established." I examined the swollen skin above the bandage. The bone must have broken through the flesh. Bacteria entered before the wound was closed. "What treatment?" Rowan asked. "The wound must be reopened and cleaned." I thought quickly. "Do you have real honey? Unprocessed?" "We keep hives. Use it to pack the wound after cleaning. Honey slows bacterial growth and helps damaged tissue repair." I looked at the sweat along the man's brow. "Change the dressing twice each day. Give willow bark tea for fever and use cold cloths. If the fever rises beyond a shifter's normal range, he may need a stronger medicine." "And the child?" I approached the smallest bed. The child looked no older than 6. Their body trembled beneath the blankets. Each breath came with a faint wheeze. "Chest infection," I said softly. "Possibly pneumonia." Then I saw the bruising. Faint marks circled the throat. But something happened before the infection. "A training incident," Rowan said, her voice tightening. "The child shifted for the first time, panicked, and tried to run into the forest. An adult restrained them. Too roughly. Yes." Anger flared inside me. Accidents happened, but this child was suffering because an adult had forgotten how easily fear could become force. "The airway is inflamed from the pressure," I said. "The infection followed the trauma." I touched the blanket near the child's chest without waking them. "Use eucalyptus steam to open the lungs. Honey and lemon for the throat. Someone must remain beside them constantly." "What signs mean the condition is worsening?" Rowan asked. "If the wheeze becomes a wet crackle, fluid is collecting in the lungs." I looked at the tiny face. For someone this young, that could become fatal very quickly. Rowan studied me for several long seconds. Then she turned to Lyra. She knows her herbs. She reads wounds properly. She thinks beyond the obvious. Her mouth tightened as though praise offended her. "She is better trained than half the healers who have passed through here." "High praise from you," Lyra said dryly. "Do not let it enlarge her ego." Rowan faced me again. "You will work under my supervision. I have been head healer for 15 years. Her voice hardened. "What I say in front of patients is final. If you question me, you do so privately. If you disagree with treatment, bring evidence." She stepped closer. "If you undermine me before a patient, I will have you scrubbing wastepans until your hands bleed." "Understood." "Good." She removed the stained apron and thrust it toward me. "Put this on. We have work, and I do not waste time with gentle introductions." Rowan pointed to each patient in turn. "The young woman needs a new poultice. The man's infection must be cleaned and repacked. The child requires constant watch." Her gaze settled on me. "You will take the first 4 hours after I show you the supplies." Lyra placed a hand on my shoulder. "You are in capable hands. Rowan is difficult, but she is the finest healer in 3 territories." Then she looked at Rowan. "Try not to frighten her away before sunset. No promises." Lyra left. Rowan was already moving toward the supply room, fully expecting me to follow. I caught up beside her. "One question. You have already used more than one. Why are you human? Rowan opened a cabinet. Why would a pack rely on a human healer when shifters recover so quickly? Because fast healing is not immortality. She began gathering jars. Silver poisoning, injuries to the head, certain infections. Their bodies cannot always repair damage faster than death advances. She handed me a basket and filled it as she spoke. True shifter healers, those born with the gift, are rare. A pack may have one, two, if it is fortunate. That is not enough for battles, hunting injuries, territorial disputes, and training accidents. Her mouth became bitter. Human healers are useful because we are expendable. We cannot shift. We cannot fight like they do. We add no strength to the pack. She pushed a jar of honey into my basket. But we can set bones, close wounds, keep warriors alive. So they tolerate us. They keep us like valuable tools. The bitterness in her voice had been built slowly, layer upon layer, over many years. How long have you lived here? I asked. 17 years. Her hands continued moving. I came as a prisoner after a raid on my village. I proved useful, so they did not kill me. I stared at her. Do not pity me, she snapped. I have lived longer here than I likely would have elsewhere. I have saved more people than I can count. Her gaze hardened around a truth she had needed in order to survive. That matters more than freedom. Then her voice returned to business. Comfrey, third shelf, horsetail in the blue jar, ground nettle in the tin. She pointed toward a mortar. Equal portions. Add enough honey to form a thick paste. How long? 10 minutes. Her eyebrows rose. Move. I worked quickly. The familiar motions steadied me, grinding leaves, measuring powder, folding honey into the herbs until the texture held. Grandmother's lessons moved through my hands even here, inside the heart of a wolf pack. Rowan watched every motion. When I finished, she smelled the mixture, tested its consistency with one finger, and gave the smallest nod. Adequate. Only adequate? Do not become greedy. She turned toward the ward. Apply it. While you work, I will teach you the actual rules of surviving Silverpine. We returned to the woman with broken ribs. Rowan supported her while I removed the old wrapping, cleaned the skin, and spread the fresh poultice. Rule 1, Rowan said quietly, ensuring only I could hear. Never become attached. To whom? Anyone. Patients, pack members, friends. She handed me clean cloth. Attachment creates vulnerability. Vulnerability will be used against you. That seems impossible. I began binding the ribs. How do you care for the wounded without caring about them? Practice. Her expression did not change. Years of practice. Rule 2. Always know how to escape. I glanced toward her. Learn every exit. Know where medicines and weapons are stored. Know which path leads outside if politics turn against you. This place appears stable. Pack politics move like wind. Today you are valued. Tomorrow you are expendable. Comforting. Truth is not meant to comfort. She watched me secure the final knot and nodded approval. It is meant to keep you alive. Then her voice lowered further. Rule 3, the most important. I waited. Never involve yourself in pack conflict. Her green eyes fixed on mine. If two wolves fight, let them fight. If someone is punished, do not interfere. Keep your head down, your mouth closed, and your hands occupied. What if someone will die? The moment you choose a side, you become a target. I thought of Kieran bleeding among the trees. I had already chosen. What if it is too late? I asked. Rowan's face turned grim. Then pray your usefulness outweighs the complications you bring. She stepped closer. And watch your back every moment you remain. We moved to the older man. The infection was worse beneath the bandages than I expected. Redness spread from the break, and heat poured from the swollen flesh. This will hurt, I warned him. He nodded once, jaw clenched. Shifters could withstand extraordinary pain. but even they possessed limits. I cleaned the open wound as gently as possible, filled it with honey, and helped Rowan reset the splint. The man never cried out. Sweat streamed down his face. His fingers gripped the wooden frame until it cracked beneath them. When we finished, Rowan covered him. "You did well. The infection should begin retreating within several days. If it does not, we use stronger treatment." "Thank you, healer," he said through tight breaths. Then he looked at me. "Both of you." It was a small acknowledgement. Yet it was the first time a member of Silverpine had looked at me without suspicion, contempt, or threat. For the next 2 hours, Rowan guided me through the rhythm of the healing quarters. She was severe, but never careless. She explained every treatment, made me diagnose each patient before giving her own answer, and corrected errors without humiliation. For the first time since entering Silverpine, I began to believe I might survive. Then the doors burst open. Vera entered at a run. "Rowan, we need you." The healer's entire body changed. No irritation, no bitterness, only command. "What happened?" "Training accident. 4 wounded, 2 critical." Vera's golden eyes moved to me. "Kieran is one of them." My heart stopped. "What happened?" "He was overseeing combat drills. One of the younger males became aggressive, partially shifted, and lost control." Kieran intervened. Her jaw tightened. His wounds opened again. "How badly?" Vera held my gaze. "Very badly." I told him not to shift. I was already moving. I told him he needed time. "You do not command the Alpha's air," Rowan snapped, though she was gathering instruments just as quickly. "Vera, bring them here. Collins, prepare the surgical room. If the internal repairs failed, he may be bleeding into his chest." The next 10 minutes dissolved into chaos. 4 injured shifters arrived on stretchers. 2 bore deep claw marks. 1 had a shoulder pulled violently from its joint, and then they brought Kieran. He was unconscious. Blood had soaked through his shirt. Each breath came shallow and wet, carrying the same deadly rattle I had heard in the forest. My healer's instincts screamed. Rowan assessed the others with one sweep. "The claw wounds can wait. The dislocation is painful, not fatal." She pointed toward Kieran. "He cannot wait." Her voice became a blade. "We operate now, or he dies." "Collins, with me." "Vera, clear everyone from the back room." "I am staying," Vera said. "Then remain quiet and useful, or leave." We carried Kieran into the surgical chamber and laid him upon a flat stone table, surrounded by instruments that looked ancient and advanced at once. Rowan cut away his shirt. The wound across his ribs had torn completely open. The healing I had forced in the forest had failed beneath the strain. Muscle lay exposed. Beneath it, I glimpsed damaged tissue moving with his breath. Possibly the lung. "We stabilize first," Rowan said. Her hands pressed cloth against the bleeding. "Collins, prepare a clotting compound, wolfsbane powder and silver dust." I stared at her. "Both are poisonous to shifters. In large quantities. Applied carefully, the mixture cauterizes wounds their bodies cannot close." Her eyes flashed. "Move." I found the ingredients and mixed them with trembling hands. The paste turned gray and released an acrid, unnatural smell. Everything about it felt wrong. But Rowan had 17 years of experience, and Kieran was bleeding faster than my doubt could afford. "Pack it directly into the wound," she ordered. "Do not be gentle. We stop the blood first. We repair damage second." I pressed the paste into the open flesh. Kieran convulsed, despite unconsciousness. Smoke rose where the compound touched him. The smell of burned tissue filled the room. It was brutal, horrifying, necessary. "Good," Rowan said. "Now we stitch. I will repair the internal layers. You close behind me, match my pace." Our needles began moving. Rowan's hands were steady and absolute. Mine trembled for the first several stitches. Then training took control. This was the work grandmother had prepared me for. This was a language my hands understood. Time vanished. There was only torn flesh, curved needles, tightening thread, and the desperate task of holding together a body determined to fall apart. At last, Rowan tied the final internal stitch. "Done," she said. "He will live." I closed the outer wound and stepped back. Blood covered my hands to the wrists. Exhaustion and adrenaline shook through every muscle. Kieran remained unconscious, but his breathing had steadied. Color slowly returned to his face. He would survive. Relief lasted only a heartbeat. Then it became anger. What was he thinking? I demanded. He was warned not to shift, not to strain himself. Why would he do something so reckless? "Because he is the Alpha's heir," Vera said quietly. "That does not make him immortal. He is responsible for training younger wolves. Stopping them from killing one another mattered more to him than his recovery. That is idiotic. That is duty." Vera looked down at Kieran with something close to respect. He understood the danger. He intervened anyway. He nearly died. The words tore from me. Again. He had nearly died again because I had saved him the first time. The realization struck with terrible clarity. By dragging Kieran back from death in the forest, I had returned his duties to him, his rank, his responsibilities. And those responsibilities were killing him almost as surely as Damien's blade had tried to. "This is what a life debt becomes," Rowan said, not unkindly. "You saved him once. Now you may be forced to save him again and again until the debt is fulfilled." Her green eyes held mine. "Or until one of you dies." I looked at Kieran, unconscious, vulnerable, his body held together by Rowan's skill and my stitches. Even damaged, he was beautiful. And fighting. Always fighting to survive what duty demanded of him. A cold certainty opened inside me. Rowan's first rule had already been broken. I was attached. I was involved in a way no warning could undo. And that attachment might destroy me. "How long before he wakes?" I asked. "Several hours, perhaps longer." Rowan began cleaning the instruments. "His body must recover from the wolfsbane." She glanced at me. "You should sleep. You have worked nearly 6 hours and can barely remain upright. I will watch him." "No." My answer came immediately. "I will stay." "Collins. He is my patient, my responsibility." I looked at Kieran. "I stay." Rowan and Vera exchanged a look I could not read. At last Rowan sighed. "Fine. If he wakes and attempts to shift, call me immediately. Do not restrain him yourself." "Why?" "Because wounded does not mean harmless." Her voice hardened. "He remains dangerous." They left me alone with him. The surgical chamber became quiet except for the slow rise and fall of his breath. I pulled a chair beside the table and finally allowed the weight of everything since the previous night to settle upon me. Fear. Exhaustion. The impossible choice that had carried me from grandmother's cottage into the center of a wolf pack. "You are an idiot," I whispered to Kieran. "A brave, loyal, self-sacrificing idiot." His hand rested near me, palm open. Without thinking, I took it. His skin was warm and calloused, yet his fingers felt unexpectedly gentle for someone raised to fight. "And now I am trapped keeping you alive," I continued, "whether you have any intention of helping me or not." He did not move. "The answer is a promise," I whispered. I gave him the solution to the riddle even though I believed he could not hear me. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, 3 in the evening, and sometimes none at all? I tightened my fingers around his. A promise. Promises begin on uncertain legs. When tested, they learn to stand. When weakened, they lean upon support. My voice softened. And sometimes they have no foundation except words, intention, and faith. I looked at the fresh stitches across his ribs. "I made you a promise in the forest. I said you would not die. My thumb brushed his knuckles. I intend to keep it. So stop trying to kill yourself in the name of duty. I leaned closer. Deal? His fingers twitched inside mine. Only once. Barely enough to feel. I chose to believe it was an answer. Chapter 6. 14 Days to Survive. Kieran woke at dawn. I had fallen asleep in the chair beside him, my head resting against folded arms at the edge of the surgical table. My hand was still holding his. The slow movement of his fingers threading through mine pulled me from dreams filled with silver, blood, and wolves with burning golden eyes. You stayed, he murmured. His voice was rough with pain and disuse. I sat up at once. Professional instinct rose faster than embarrassment. You tore your wounds open. The internal damage was extensive. Rowan and I operated for more than an hour. Only then did I realize how intimately our hands were joined. I pulled mine away. How do you feel? As though someone opened me, filled me with fire, and stitched me closed again. He tried to sit. Pain stopped him halfway. How serious is it? Serious enough that you should remain in bed for at least a week. Serious enough that another shift before complete healing could cause permanent damage. I stood and checked the bandages with deliberate clinical distance. And serious enough that I am reconsidering whether saving you in the forest was worth the effort. One corner of his mouth lifted. Are you this honest with every patient? Only the ones foolish enough to nearly kill themselves less than a day after being saved. I had responsibilities. You had a death wish. I peeled back the dressing. The stitching held, but the surrounding flesh was swollen and furious. Someone else could have supervised training. Your father could have disciplined the younger wolves. Instead, you put yourself in danger because you could not bear to appear weak. I am weak. His voice went flat. I lost to Damien so completely that I should have died. Now the entire pack knows it. I looked at him. Shame lived beneath his anger. Self-loathing. The belief that failure had exposed some permanent flaw inside him. I knew that look. I had seen it in my own reflection. You are not weak, I said quietly. You are injured. There is a difference. Not here. He turned his face away. In pack culture, weakness costs position, respect, the right to lead. His jaw tightened. I should not have survived. You should have left me there. It would have been cleaner. Cleaner for whom? I spread fresh salve across the wound, perhaps more roughly than necessary. For Damien, who eliminates a rival. For your father, who loses his son. For Silverpine, which loses its future alpha. I tied a new bandage. Or cleaner for you, because dying is easier than facing the consequences of living? You do not understand. No, I do not understand a culture that values pride above survival and reputation above life. I stepped back. But I understand patients who decide they are not worth saving. My voice hardened, and I do not tolerate them. I faced him fully. So whatever self-destructive spiral you have chosen, climb out of it. I did not spend grandmother's irreplaceable medicine, abandon my home, and risk my life inside this pack, merely so you could throw yourself away during a training exercise. Silence filled the room. Long. Heavy. At last, Kieran said, "You are angry with me." I am furious. I turned away and began cleaning instruments before my hands found something less harmless to break. You entered my room yesterday and warned me about Damien. You described every way Silverpine could kill me. You told me to be cautious. I looked over my shoulder. Then you did the exact opposite. You ignored your limits, rushed into danger, and nearly died again. I am sorry. I do not need an apology. I set down the instrument. I need your cooperation. Kieran watched me. You asked about the riddle in the forest, I said. I never told you the answer. A promise. I turned sharply. He continued. You told me while I was unconscious. You heard? I drifted in and out, I heard enough. His golden eyes found mine. You promised I would not die. A faint understanding entered his face. And you are angry because I almost forced you to break that promise. Yes. Then I will give you one in return. He struggled upward. This time, I helped him and placed pillows behind his back. I will follow your treatment. I will rest. I will stop proving I am strong enough to lead when I am barely strong enough to stand. Relief began to rise. Then he added, but you must promise me something as well. What? When the council asks about my recovery, tell them the truth. His expression became hard. Do not protect me. Do not make my condition sound better than it is. If I am unfit to lead, they must know. That could destroy your position. I will not inherit command because people fear telling my father I am unworthy. That is madness. That is integrity. He caught my wrist. His grip was gentle, but it refused release. Promise me, Collins. Truth for truth. I wanted to refuse. The council would use weakness against him. Damien would seize every admission and turn it into a weapon. But grandmother had taught me that even merciful lies carried poison. I promise, I said. Then I leaned closer. But you must give me improvement worth reporting. That means obeying me long enough to heal. Agreed. He released my wrist. How long before I can return to light duty? Weeks. Possibly a month. Kieran closed his eyes. I do not have a month. Why? Damien can renew the challenge. Cold entered my blood. When? The autumn gathering begins in 2 weeks. 4 packs meet to hunt, trade, and reaffirm alliances. His face went still. If I cannot defend my position during the gathering, Damien may challenge me again. This time, the council will not prevent it. He will kill you. He will try. Kieran opened his eyes. Hope, small and dangerous, burned inside them. Whether he succeeds may depend on you. My stomach tightened. Can you make me ready to fight in 14 days? I thought of torn muscle, damaged lungs, fresh stitches, and a body already wounded before the second surgery. Perhaps, I said slowly, if you obey every instruction, if you do not push too hard, if your body responds, and if we are fortunate, very fortunate, then we begin now. He swung his legs from the table. Pain crossed his face, but he refused to stop. You woke from surgery moments ago, and I have 14 days to survive another attempt on my life. He steadied himself. Time is not a luxury I possess. I wanted to force him down, but I saw what stood behind his determination, the need to reclaim control after Damien, his father, the council, and his own body had taken it away. Fine, I said, but everything happens my way. I crossed my arms. I monitor you constantly. I change treatment whenever necessary. I decide when training begins and when it stops. His eyebrows rose. You become my only patient for the next 2 weeks. That will create rumors. Let it. I lifted my chin. You are the Alpha's heir. I am the healer who saved you. Of course I am focused on your recovery. Anyone who objects can speak to your father. For the first time since waking, Kieran smiled. A real smile. It changed him completely, lifting years of burden from his face. You are either extraordinarily brave or deeply foolish. I am a healer with a difficult patient. The same thing. I moved toward the door. Do not move, do not shift, do not breathe hard enough to tear anything. Yes, healer. The mockery in his voice made me want to strike him with a pillow. I found Rowan in the main ward treating the remaining casualties. She looked up once. He is awake. It was not a question, and already attempting to kill himself through effort. I stopped beside her. I want him assigned solely to me. Constant observation. A specialized recovery plan. Somewhere isolated enough for controlled rehabilitation. Rowan set down her bandage. That is irregular. Rank does not buy special treatment here. This is not privilege. It is necessity. I met her gaze. Damien can challenge him in 2 weeks. If Kieran cannot defend himself, he dies. My voice tightened. I have saved him twice. I will not stand by while he dies 14 days from now. Personal attachment is dangerous, Rowan warned. I told you that. I heard you. And I am choosing to ignore it. Her eyebrows lifted. I made a promise. I intend to keep it. I stepped closer. Will you approve the plan, or must I ask the Alpha? Rowan stared at me. Then she laughed once, short and sharp. You truly are Ruby's granddaughter. Her expression softened by the smallest degree. She carried the same stubborn refusal to accept that some patients could not be saved. She waved one hand. Take him, but understand what that means. His recovery belongs to you. Every improvement, every setback. Her green eyes hardened. And his death, if it comes. I understand. When the council asks why you spend every hour with him, the answer is medical necessity, not attachment. Understood. I collected everything required for 2 weeks. Pain herbs, healing salves, linen, clean water, surgical tools, and the small amount remaining from grandmother's red medicine. When I returned, Kieran was standing. Barely. He leaned against the stone table, white with pain, but upright. What did I say about moving? You said not to shift or breathe too hard. He straightened slightly. You did not forbid standing. Where are we doing this? He asked before I could scold him further. Here? No. Excuse me? We need privacy. Somewhere I can recover and train without the entire pack watching. I moved under his arm to support his weight. Can you walk? Yes. Can you walk without collapsing? Probably. An inspiring answer. There is a recovery cabin near the edge of Silver Pine, he said. Injured pack members use it when they need quiet. How far? 10 minutes normally. He glanced at his bandaged side. Perhaps 20 now. It took 30. The cabin rested beneath an enormous oak at the edge of the settlement. By the time we reached it, Kieran was shaking and soaked in sweat. I lowered him onto the single bed and immediately checked the wound. 2 stitches had torn. You could not wait for transport, I demanded, anger and fear fighting inside me. You had to prove you could walk? I needed to know. His eyes remained closed. I needed proof the damage was not permanent. It will become permanent if you keep testing it. I fetched water and instruments. This will hurt. Everything hurts. Yes, this will hurt more. I removed the damaged thread, cleaned the reopened flesh, and stitched it again. Kieran made no sound. His hands gripped the bed frame until the wood groaned. When I finished, my own hands trembled from fatigue. No walking, no standing, no training for 48 hours. I began arranging supplies. After that, we begin stretching, breathing, and gradual strength work. I do not have time for gradual. You do not have a choice. I faced him. This cabin is now my medical territory. You promised cooperation. A pause. Then cooperate. He remained quiet for several breaths. Will you stay? I turned. What? Here. There is a cot in the corner. He gestured weakly. You said constant monitoring. That is difficult if you sleep in the main building. He was right. Medically, it made sense. But 2 weeks alone in a cabin with him felt intimate in a way medicine could not explain. No one else present. Nothing between us except healing, conversation, and the invisible line separating patient from healer. A line already beginning to blur. People will talk, I said. Let them. He returned my own words. You are my healer. I am your patient. There is nothing improper in close observation. Everything about this feels improper. I know. Kieran opened his eyes. But I am asking because I trust you more than anyone here. His voice lost its command. You have no reason to manipulate my rank. When you look at me, you see a wounded man. not an heir who must appear strong. That vulnerability decided me. He was exhausted from performing strength for everyone around him. Fine, I said, but we establish boundaries. Professional boundaries. You are my patient. I am your healer. Nothing more. Nothing more, he agreed. We both knew it was already a lie. The promise between us had changed. It no longer belonged only to wounds and medicine. It existed on no legs at all, built from words, intention, and the dangerous hope that both of us might survive what waited ahead. The first 3 days were brutal. Kieran's body resisted rest with the same stubbornness he brought to everything else. Each time I changed the bandages, the flesh remained inflamed, as though the wolf inside him rejected stillness. It is the wolf, he explained on the second night, as I applied salve for the 3rd time that day. It wants movement, shifting. It believes the fastest healing comes through taking control. Can you feel it as something separate? He considered the question. Yes and no. It is me, but it is also another layer of instinct running beside the human mind. His eyes closed. When I am injured, the wolf pushes harder. It wants dominance. And if you surrender, I shift. The wounds close faster, but incorrectly. Scar tissue forms. Internal damage becomes permanent. His jaw tightened. I would remain functional, never fully strong. Which is what Damien wants. A rival permanently weakened. I smoothed salve over the deepest injury. Tell me about the first challenge. Stupidity. Bitter anger entered his voice. Our packs were negotiating hunting rights. Damien spoke about Lyra's daughter, the one who died. He called her weak, said her death proved our bloodline had begun to fail. And you challenged him to defend her memory. I challenged him because I lost control. Kieran stared at the ceiling. He destroyed me before both packs, in front of witnesses. His voice faded. Humiliation is too small a word for it. I began wrapping fresh linen around his ribs. You loved her. She was my cousin, but she was raised like my sister. We trained together, hunted together. His voice cracked once. She was supposed to become one of Silverpine's strongest fighters. What happened? A routine hunt. He looked toward me. They say it was an accident. No one will tell me exactly how she died. I heard everything he did not say. You do not believe it was accidental. No. You suspect Damien. Grief and rage filled his eyes. I cannot prove it. I cannot accuse an heir without evidence. So when he insulted her, he gave me permission to fight him, and you took it, and lost. Not permanently. I secured the bandage. You are alive. You are healing. You will face him again. If you make me ready, I will. The confidence in my voice exceeded what I felt. But you must trust my methods, even when they seem slow, even when your wolf demands more. I trust you, he said simply. His golden eyes did not waver. You are the only one I do. On the 4th day, we began gentle exercise, controlled breathing, slow stretching, small movements designed to remind muscle how to work without tearing the healing tissue. A routine formed around us. At dawn, I examined wounds and replaced bandages. In the morning, stretching. At midday, herbs and rest. In the afternoon, added resistance. At night, meditation to calm the wolf and channel its healing rather than fight it. The nights were harder. The cabin was small. Only 6 feet separated my cot from his bed. Without work to distract me, I became aware of every breath, every shift of blankets, every quiet sound dragged from him by nightmares. Tell me about your grandmother, he said one night when neither of us could sleep. I stared into the darkness. She is the strongest person I know. She survived losses that should have destroyed her. I swallowed. Her daughter, her son-in-law, everyone she loved except me. And she continued. She healed, she taught, she found reasons to rise every morning. She sounds remarkable. She is. I hesitated. She once told me healing is selfish. Selfish? We save people because we cannot tolerate a world containing less life. My voice softened. Every patient who survives proves death does not always win. Do you believe that? I do not know. I turned toward the shadow of him. Sometimes I think healers are simply too stubborn to accept that some damage cannot be repaired. Then I asked, why do you fight? Why do you want to become Alpha? Because someone must. His voice sounded tired. My father will not live forever. Silverpine will need someone capable of protecting it. A silence. And because I want to change things. What things? The way packs treat humans. The way disputes are resolved through blood when another solution exists. His breath left slowly. The system is brutal, because everyone believes brutality is strength. And you think becoming Alpha gives you the power to change it. You cannot change a system from outside it. That sounds idealistic. Naive, he corrected. Then, quietly, but it is all I have. We spoke for hours. Stories, losses, childhood memories, the hopes neither of us admitted before others. We learned one another beyond wounds and titles. Each conversation, each silence, each unexpected laugh wore away the boundary I had insisted upon, like waves cutting through sand. By the end of the first week, Kieran could stand without assistance. He could circle the cabin without reopening stitches. He could hold basic defensive positions without collapsing. It was progress. It was not enough. The gathering begins in 7 days, he said on the 8th morning. His wounds had improved beyond my expectations. His wolf nature had finally begun working with my treatment instead of fighting it. Damien will challenge me on the first day. Tradition requires unresolved disputes to be settled before they poison the gathering. Can you defeat him? Kieran answered honestly. I do not know. He is stronger, more experienced. A hard smile touched his mouth. I possess determination and nothing left to lose. He caught my hand before I moved away. Whatever happens, you must know you have already done more than anyone could demand. His expression softened. If I fall, it is not your failure. Do not. I pulled my hand free. Do not begin preparing me for your death. Collins, we have 7 days. That may not be enough. I made you a promise. I stood and gathered the training supplies. I intend to keep it. Today we add combat movement, I said. Slow and controlled, but real technique. Your body must remember battle. That is aggressive. We no longer have time for caution alone. I met his eyes. We adapt. We push harder. A pause. And we pray it is enough. For the next 6 days, we trained as though our lives depended upon it. Because they did. Kieran's body responded better than I dared hope. His wounds held beneath stress. Strength returned in measured pieces until he moved almost with his old speed and power. Almost. I still saw fear in his eyes. Better was not healed. He would face Damien damaged, weaker than before, and without certainty that his body would survive the fight. On the final night, I could not sleep. I lay on my cot and listened to Kieran breathe, counting the hours until dawn. Until the challenge. Until I learned whether everything I had done had been enough. Collins? His voice came softly through the darkness. I am awake. The riddle. I turned toward him. You said the answer was a promise. What kind of promise? I thought of grandmother, Kieran, myself. Of words meant to be unbreakable, even when they existed only as hope whispered into darkness. The kind that changes everything, I answered at last. The kind you cannot take back once spoken. My voice fell lower. The kind that reveals who you are. Silence. Then Kieran said, I understand, and somehow I knew he did. He was thinking of his promise to Silverpine, to his father, to the dead girl he had failed to protect. Sleep, I whispered. You need your strength. So do you. Neither of us slept. We lay in the darkness waiting for dawn, waiting for every promise between us to be tested, and praying that when the moment came, we would both be strong enough to keep them. Chapter 7. The Challenge Beneath the Old Pines. The autumn gathering grounds were ancient. A natural amphitheater curved into the hillside, surrounded by pines tall enough to have witnessed centuries of treaties, challenges, betrayals, and blood. By the time we arrived, all 4 packs had begun assembling. Silver Pine, Damien's Ironwood pack, and 2 others whose names I had not yet learned. Hundreds of shifters filled the slopes. Their voices merged into a deep rumble, like thunder trapped beneath the earth. Tension thickened the air. Everyone knew why we were there. Everyone knew blood would be demanded before peace could begin. Kieran walked beside me. I watched every step, every breath, every subtle tightening around his eyes. He moved well, not perfectly, not at full strength, but well enough to fight. Barely. "Stay close to Lyra," he said as we descended toward the gathering floor. "When the challenge begins, the crowd may become difficult to control. I need to remain close enough to assess you. Collins." He stopped and turned toward me. "Please." The word silenced my argument. "I cannot fight Damien if I am wondering whether you are safe." I saw fear in his eyes. Not for himself. For me, my safety mattered more to him than the possibility of his own death. "I will stay with Lyra," I agreed. "But if you fall, if the injury is serious, I am entering that circle whether their law permits it or not." His mouth curved faintly. "I would expect nothing less." Lyra reached us before we had gone another 10 steps. She wore scarred leather armor. Her silver-threaded hair had been braided tightly away from her face. "The challenge will be called within the hour," she said. "Damien has spent the morning ensuring everyone notices how certain he is of victory." "Let him perform," Kieran replied. "Confidence will not save him. Neither will bravado save you." Lyra examined her nephew with a warrior's eye. "How are the wounds?" "Stable." That was not an answer. "They are healed enough." Kieran met her gaze. "I can do this." Lyra looked at me. Healer's assessment. Honesty was my duty. It was also a blade that could be placed in Damien's hand. "He has recovered significantly," I said. "The wounds are closed. The internal damage has repaired. His movement and technique are functional." Lyra waited. "But he is not at full strength." I forced myself to finish. "Approximately 85%. 85% against an opponent at full capacity. Against an opponent who believes Kieran is still broken," I corrected. "Damien is overconfident. That gives us an advantage." "A small one. Yes." Lyra's expression remained grim. "It must be enough." She gestured toward the center of the amphitheater. "The alphas will call the gathering to order. The challenge will be announced." Her eyes settled on Kieran. "Then you prove your right to stand, or you die. No softness, no middle ground." Alpha Grayson entered the center of the gathering space. His silver-white hair shone beneath the afternoon sun. Around him stood senior representatives of all 4 packs, the Council of Equals responsible for relations between territories. "We gather beneath the old laws," Grayson announced. His voice carried effortlessly through the amphitheater. 4 packs. One purpose: to preserve peace, share resources, settle disputes before they become war. His winter blue gaze swept across the crowd. "But peace requires justice." A pause. "And justice demands that every challenge be answered." A ripple moved through the assembled wolves. Everyone understood. "Damien of Ironwood," Alpha Grayson called. "You have the floor." Damien stepped forward. Beside me, Kieran's body tightened. In daylight, Damien appeared even more striking than he had in the council chamber. Golden hair, perfect features, the effortless charisma of someone born knowing others would follow. He wore confidence like armor. Alpha Grayson, honored counsel, assembled packs. His voice was polished, warm, and entirely without mercy. 6 weeks ago, Kieran Grayson challenged me over a matter of honor. He looked toward Kieran. We fought. He lost. Murmurs rose from Ironwood. Under treaty law, the wounds he received were intended to be fatal, a lawful end for one who violated sacred protocol. Kieran said nothing, his jaw locked. But Kieran survived, Damien continued, not through his own strength. His pale eyes found me among the crowd. Through outside interference. His smile turned poisonous. He was healed. Given a second chance he neither earned nor deserved. The healer acted according to her calling, Lyra shouted. She violated no treaty. No, Damien's gaze remained on me. She violated no tiret of justice. Then he turned toward Kieran. And because of her interference, the challenge remains unresolved. His voice rose. A man who should be dead still walks among us. Damien stepped into the center. I invoke the right of renewal. Silence fell. The challenge stands. This time there will be no interference, no healer, no second chance. The amphitheater erupted. Ironwood shouted approval. Silverpine answered in protest. Alpha Grayson raised one hand. The noise died. Kieran Grayson, he said, his face unreadable. Do you accept the renewed challenge? This was the final door. Kieran could refuse. He could admit weakness and step down as heir. He could live, recover, and perhaps reclaim his place years later. It would have been wise. It would have been safe. I knew he would never choose it. I accept, Kieran said clearly. His voice carried through every row. Here and now. He looked directly at Damien. Let the matter end. The crowd roared. This was what they had come to witness. Blood combat. Two heirs tearing at one another until dominance became undeniable. Form the circle, Alpha Grayson ordered. Traditional rules. Combat in wolf form. No interference. His gaze hardened. The challenge ends in submission, or death. The crowd drew back, leaving a wide ring of bare earth. May the strongest survive. Kieran removed his shirt. The half-healed marks across his chest and ribs became visible to everyone. Whispers moved through the audience. They saw the damage. They saw he was not whole. Damien stripped as well. His body carried no fresh wounds. Perfect muscle. Perfect strength. A warrior entering at his peak. This is not fair, I whispered. He is not ready. Fairness has no place here, Lyra said. Her hand closed around my arm. He accepted. What if? Stay with me. If you enter that circle, they will kill you. Then Kieran will die because your interference distracted him. Across the open ground, Kieran found my eyes. His lips formed two silent words. Trust me. Then both men shifted. The transformations were beautiful and terrible. Kieran's black wolf emerged first. He looked leaner than the night I found him. Injury and recovery had cost him weight and power. But he moved with smooth precision, circling, calculating. Damien became a massive golden-brown wolf with a scarred muzzle and muscles that rolled beneath his fur. He was larger, heavier, longer in reach. Every advantage could be seen before the first strike. They circled. Neither moved first. Hundreds of shifters fell silent. The entire gathering seemed to hold one breath. Damien lunged. He was faster than I expected. His jaws snapped inches from Kieran's throat. Kieran twisted aside, using his smaller body to escape the line of attack. Damien's momentum carried him past. Kieran turned and struck. His teeth sank into Damien's shoulder. First blood. Silverpine erupted in cheers. Damien barely reacted. He rotated into the bite and drove his weight sideways. Kieran slammed into the ground. The impact reached me across the circle. I heard the breath tear from his lungs. "Get up," I whispered. My fingers dug into Lyra's arm. "Please, get up." Kieran rolled before Damien's jaws closed over him. He regained his feet, but favored the right side. The old damage had begun to hurt. Damien noticed. Of course he noticed. He attacked that side again, and again. The fight became vicious. Kieran defended, retreated, and twisted away, but each movement grew slower. Blood marked both wolves now. Kieran's blood marked the earth more heavily. "He is going to lose," someone behind me said. "He should have stayed dead," another answered. Rage burned through me. They saw weakness. I saw a man fighting with wounds that should have killed him twice. I wanted to scream that courage alone should have earned their respect. Instead, I held my tongue and clung to Lyra like an anchor. Damien drove Kieran down. His body pinned the black wolf beneath him. His jaws closed around Kieran's throat. He did not bite. Not yet. The message was clear. Submit or die. The crowd began chanting. Submit. Again. Submit. Hundreds of voices took up the word. Submit. 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 Kieran's golden eyes found mine. What I saw inside them broke something in my chest. Resignation. Acceptance. He had fought with everything I had helped him recover. It had not been enough. He would submit. Lose his rank. Lose his future. Lose the right to lead the pack he wanted to change. And there was nothing I could do. Then his expression shifted. A spark. Not strength. An idea. Kieran went completely limp. Damien, startled by the sudden lack of resistance, loosened his grip by the smallest fraction. That fraction was enough. Kieran twisted free. Instead of attacking the throat, he struck low at Damien's legs. It was not wolf technique. It was human wrestling. Unexpected. Untraditional. Effective. Damien crashed onto his side. Before he could rise, Kieran climbed across his back and locked his jaws at the base of Damien's skull. The kill point. One bite could sever the spine. The amphitheater became silent. Yield. Kieran partially shifted, enough for the word to emerge from a human throat. Yield, or I end this. For a long moment, Damien resisted. He could attempt to throw Kieran aside, but one wrong movement meant death. I yield, he finally said. The words were barely audible. They were enough. Kieran released him and stumbled backward. He shifted fully into human form. Blood ran from a dozen wounds. His body swayed, his eyes had begun losing focus. But he stood. He had won. Silverpine exploded into celebration. Alpha Grayson's face remained carefully neutral, yet pride flashed in his eyes before he hit it. I was already moving. Lyra called my name, but I pushed through the crowd toward the circle. Kieran's knees folded. I reached him before he struck the ground. My arms closed around his waist, taking as much weight as I could. Up close, the damage looked worse. Old wounds had opened. New ones crossed his chest, shoulder, and back. Blood ran everywhere. I won, he whispered, his voice slurred with pain. Collins, I won. You are an idiot. My own voice thickened with relief, pride, and terror. You are bleeding from half your body. You may have damaged your organs again. I looked at him. And you won with a human wrestling technique. What were you thinking? I was thinking. He coughed. Blood touched his lips. That I promised not to die. His eyes tried to focus on mine. I had to keep it. Rowan appeared beside us with a stretcher and 2 assistants. Move him to the healing tent, now. We lowered Kieran carefully. Every jolt risked worsening the internal damage. The crowd parted as we carried their victorious air away from the center of triumph and toward another desperate attempt to keep him alive. The healing tent stood at the edge of the gathering grounds. Inside, medical chaos had already begun. Fighters from smaller challenges occupied cots. Healers sorted supplies and called instructions over one another. We placed Kieran on a surgical table. Rowan examined him with brutal speed. Old wounds open, new trauma around the ribs, possible internal bleeding. She reached for a blade. We operate again. I can do it, I began. No. Her answer stopped me. You are too involved. You will hesitate when you should cut and rush when you should wait. She met my eyes. I operate. You assist and monitor him. I wanted to argue, but my hands were shaking. Fear had clouded every thought. Rowan was right. Understood, I said. We worked for 3 hours. Rowan's hands never faltered. She repaired torn tissue, closed internal bleeding, and stitched damaged muscle. I passed each instrument before she asked, tracked Kieran's breathing and pulse, and watched for every sign that his body might fail. He remained unconscious. At last, exhaustion had conquered him. He will live, Rowan said when the final suture was tied. Air returned to my lungs. But he requires complete rest. No training, no challenge, no duty for at least a month. Permanent damage? Too early to know. His shifter healing may repair most of it. Her expression hardened. But bodies have limits. Push him too soon, and the damage may remain. Rowan removed her bloodied gloves. You did well. I looked at her. You made him functional enough to win. Most healers could not have done that. It was almost not enough. But it was. She gestured to the chair beside him. That is what matters. Watch his breathing and color. Call me if either changes. Then she left to treat the other wounded. I was alone with Kieran again. Just as I had been after the training accident. Watching his chest rise. Counting heartbeats. Trying to force life to remain through will alone. You kept your promise, I whispered. You stubborn, brave, ridiculous man. Outside the tent, Silverpine celebrated. They drank and shouted beneath the old pines, while their future alpha lay broken beneath fresh stitches. I wanted to hate them for it. But I understood. This was their way. Celebrate victory first. Mourn the price later. Lyra entered carrying food and tea. You need to eat. I need to watch him. You need both. She poured 2 cups and placed one in my hands. He won, Collins. Injured beyond reason, facing an opponent at full strength, and he won. He nearly died. Yes. Lyra took a slow drink. That is why the victory matters. In our world, worth is measured by what you survive. Kieran survived the first challenge, the execution, recovery, and now this renewal. She looked at him. He has proven himself in the language the pack understands. I hate your culture. So do I. Her mouth curved without humor. Sometimes. But it has kept us alive for thousands of years. There were times when gentleness would have meant extinction. She leaned closer. You do not have to love our customs. You only need to understand them well enough that they do not destroy you. We sat in silence as evening deepened. The celebration grew louder. Barriers between packs softened beneath food and drink. Eventually Lyra said, Damien has left. With Ironwood? Yes. Will he challenge again? Not publicly. She looked toward the tent wall. He lost twice. First when death failed to keep Kieran, then when he submitted before 4 packs. His reputation is ruined. Good. Perhaps. Lyra's expression became grave. Or perhaps we created an enemy with nothing left to lose and every reason to seek revenge. She stood and touched my shoulder. But that is tomorrow's danger. Her voice softened. Tonight, accept that your patient survived. Your promise held. You both reached the other side. After she left, I moved my chair closer and took Kieran's hand. His skin was warm, his pulse strong. Every medical sign promised recovery. Yet I could not shake the feeling that another line had been crossed. I had healed him so he could fight before he was ready. I had kept my promise. The cost was still being counted. "I am sorry," I whispered. "For pushing you, for letting you fight, for all of it." His fingers moved. Golden eyes opened slightly beneath the lamplight. "Do not be sorry," he breathed. "You saved me again. At the cost of your health, perhaps your future. Even then." His hand tightened weakly around mine. "You gave me the chance to prove myself, to win with honor instead of die in shame." His gaze held mine. That was worth more than perfect recovery. I wanted to tell him pride was not worth permanent injury, but I saw the truth in his eyes. This had healed something medicine could not reach. "Sleep," I said gently. "We will argue when you are stronger." A faint smile touched his mouth. "I look forward to it." His eyes closed. His hand remained in mine. I sat beside him through the night, while wolves howled the traditional close of the gathering. The sound carried celebration and mourning together, because survival and loss were never separate in their world. Every victory planted the seed of future pain. Every promise made in desperation eventually demanded payment. I had saved Kieran twice. Blood, medicine, and stubborn refusal had bound us together. But as I held his hand in that dark tent, one question would not leave me. When the price of every promise finally came due, who would save me? Chapter 8: The Reckoning of Hearts. 3 weeks after the autumn gathering, Kieran had recovered enough to resume limited duty. 3 weeks of examinations, treatments, and watching his body slowly become whole. 3 weeks in which every boundary between us thinned until I could no longer pretend my concern was merely clinical. And 3 weeks of whispers spreading through Silverpine. Everyone watched the human healer and the Alpha's heir. Everyone speculated about what had happened inside the recovery cabin. No one asked us directly. They did not need to. "The council wants to see you," Vera said one morning. She appeared in the healing quarters while I arranged supplies. "Both of you, immediately." My stomach dropped. "Why?" They did not say. Her golden eyes studied me. But Lyra looked concerned, and Lyra rarely wastes energy on concern. Vera lowered her voice. "Whatever happened between you and Kieran in that cabin, people noticed." Her expression became grim. "And pack attention is rarely harmless. I found Kieran in the training yard. He moved through sword forms with careful precision, his body graceful, powerful, and almost completely restored. Watching him made something tighten beneath my ribs. "Council summons," I called, "for both of us." His practice stopped. "When?" "Now." Kieran sheathed the blade and reached for a shirt. "This concerns the debt." "What makes you certain?" "It has been almost 2 months. They want to know whether it has ended." "And what will we tell them?" He looked at me. The same conflict I carried reflected in his golden eyes. By every medical measure, the debt should already have been satisfied. He could fight, train, resume command. My obligation to heal him was complete. Yet neither of us had mentioned ending the arrangement. Neither had suggested I should stop checking him each morning. Neither had asked for the distance we once promised to maintain. "We tell them the truth," Kieran said quietly. "Whatever the truth is." The council chamber felt as intimidating as it had on my first day. Stone walls, torchlight, 7 pairs of eyes waiting to judge. But the balance had changed. Kieran was no longer a defeated heir struggling to justify his survival. He was the warrior who had returned from death and forced Damien to submit. And I was no longer an unknown human. I was the healer who had made that victory possible. "Collins, Kieran," Alpha Grayson's voice revealed nothing. "You stand before the council to address the life debt." His icy gaze settled on me. 8 weeks have passed since you entered Silverpine. 8 weeks of dedicated service to my son's recovery. He folded his hands. The question is simple. Has the debt been satisfied? I glanced at Kieran. His face had become carefully blank. He would not choose the answer for me. From a medical position, I said, Kieran has recovered from the injuries that brought me here. He is combat ready, functionally whole, and capable of performing his full duties. My voice remained steady. By that standard, yes, the debt should be considered satisfied. And yet you continue to examine him every day, one elder observed. You treat injuries any healer could manage. His eyes narrowed. Why? Because I could not sleep without knowing Kieran still breathed. Because each morning I needed proof he remained alive. Because somewhere between holding his body together and watching him fight for his future, obligation had become something far more dangerous. Trauma as severe as Kieran's requires long-term observation, I answered instead. Complications may develop months later, scar tissue, internal adhesions, chronic pain. I lifted my chin. I am ensuring he is completely healed, not merely functional. How convenient. The new voice came from the doorway. Cold. Mocking. My blood froze. Damien stood there with two unfamiliar wolves behind him. His presence violated the conditions of surrender. He should not have been permitted in Silver Pine territory for at least a year. What is he doing here? Kieran demanded. Rage tightened every word. I was invited, Damien replied smoothly. He entered as though the chamber belonged to him. The council requested testimony regarding certain irregularities. Alpha Grayson's voice became dangerously quiet. What irregularities? The human. Damien's pale eyes fixed on me. She lived alone with your son for weeks, isolated, unsupervised. No witness could verify what occurred between them. He smiled. In human society, such an arrangement might merely be scandalous. In ours, it suggests something more serious. Careful, Lyra warned. You are making accusations without proof. Am I? Damien drew a small glass vial from his pocket. Dark liquid caught the torchlight inside it. This is bloodroot extract. The room became still. Rare, difficult to obtain, and useful for one particular purpose. He held it higher. It creates artificial bonds between shifters and humans. A chill moved across my skin. One drop in food or drink, Damien continued, and a human becomes irresistible to a shifter. The resulting false mate bond may last for months. The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped. Shock, questions, accusation. Alpha Grayson's command cut through all of it. You are claiming Collins drugged my son. I am saying she possessed motive, opportunity, and knowledge. Damien's smile carried poison. She is a healer with access to rare compounds. A human surrounded by wolves who distrust her. She required protection. His gaze moved toward Kieran, and she spent weeks alone with the heir, with no one present to observe what she placed in his medicine. If she manufactured a bond, Damien said, it would explain his unnatural devotion. That is insane. My voice shook with fury. I have never used bloodroot. I would never. Can you prove it? Damien stepped closer. Can you prove you did not alter his emotions? His tone was calm enough to sound reasonable. Because from where I stand, it is remarkably convenient that Silver Pine's heir has become so dependent on a human healer that he can barely function without her. Kieran moved forward. Violence charged the air around him. You are calling me weak. His golden eyes burned. You suggest I am so helpless that a human could control me with herbs. I suggest you were wounded, vulnerable, and exposed for weeks to someone capable of altering perception. Damien never raised his voice. That is not weakness, it is biology. Enough. Alpha Grayson stood. Silence fell. These accusations are serious. If true, they invalidate the life debt, cast doubt upon Kieran's challenge victory, and require Collins's exile. His gaze hardened. Or execution. My heart struck violently against my ribs. Execution. For a crime I had never committed. A thought that had never even entered my mind. How can it be tested? Vera asked. How do we prove whether Bloodroot influenced him? Separation, one elder answered. If an artificial bond exists, it will weaken when contact ends. Within days, Kieran's behavior should return to normal. And if the bond is real, distance will not alter his judgment. No, Kieran said immediately. I will not be separated from her because of a baseless accusation. It is no longer baseless when circumstances support suspicion, Damien replied. Alpha Grayson looked between us. 1 week. Kieran went still. You will remain in Silverpine and resume your duties without contact with Collins. Collins will be confined to the healing quarters under constant supervision. The Alpha's voice allowed no disagreement. At the end of 7 days, the Council will assess whether your behavior or attachment has changed. Father, this is not negotiable. Alpha Grayson's expression hardened. If your choices are truly your own, 7 days apart should be meaningless. But if Damien has uncovered manipulation, the integrity of Silverpine's leadership depends upon knowing. I wanted to refuse, to demand evidence, to scream my innocence until the stone walls cracked. Then I saw uncertainty in the Council's eyes. They were already wondering whether a human could have deceived them. I accept the separation, I said. My voice remained steady even while fear moved through my blood. I have nothing to hide. I never used Bloodroot or any substance to influence Kieran. I looked directly at Damien. Whatever exists between us is real. 7 days will prove it. Kieran turned toward me, anguish crossing his face. Collins, it is all right. I held his gaze. 1 week is nothing. When Damien is proven wrong, he will answer for the lie. But dread had already entered my bones. A week would prove something. And if Kieran's feelings vanished once I was no longer beside him, once my care and desperate need to save him were removed, perhaps Damien had found a truth I had been afraid to face. Perhaps what bound us was not love. Perhaps it was trauma, proximity, the dangerous intimacy of healing. The separation begins now, Alpha Grayson ordered. Vera, escort Collins to the healing quarters. Post a guard. His gaze shifted to Kieran. You come with me. We have duties. Vera's hand settled gently on my arm. As she led me away, I looked back. Kieran watched me leave with fury, helplessness, and something that looked terrifyingly like farewell. The first 3 days were bearable. I buried myself in work, patience, supplies, teaching younger healers the methods grandmother had placed in my hands. Rowan supervised every moment, as ordered, but never made the confinement cruel. She understood the humiliation of suspicion. They did this to me, she said on the 2nd day, while we set a child's broken arm. When I first arrived, they accused me of using human witchcraft to influence the pack. They isolated me for 2 weeks. How did you endure it? Spite. Her smile was grim. And the knowledge that proving them wrong would feel better than any revenge. By the 4th day, endurance became pain. I listened for Kieran's footsteps in every corridor. I looked for him whenever a door opened. At night, I reached across the darkness before remembering he was not there. The recovery cabin felt haunted by absence. Was this withdrawal, or merely missing someone with whom I had shared fear, healing, and nights of impossible honesty? How could I know the difference? Lyra came on the 5th day. Her composure had fractured. How is he? I asked before she sat. Functional, performing duty, training younger wolves. She paused. And miserable. He barely eats, he does not sleep. His wolf is restless and aggressive. Lyra's eyes darkened. Yesterday, a council member suggested you might have manipulated him. Kieran nearly shifted inside the meeting. Relief flooded me. Guilt followed it immediately. That is good, is it not? It proves there is no artificial bond. Perhaps. Lyra sat beside me. Or it proves the bond is powerful enough to create severe separation effects. She turned toward me. I need complete honesty. Did you use anything, at any time, that might have altered his emotions or judgment? No. I did not hesitate. I swear upon grandmother's memory and everything sacred to me, I never manipulated him. Lyra studied my face. At last, she nodded. I believe you. Then what is wrong? That creates another problem. If no artificial bond exists, then what you share is real. She let the words settle. A real connection could not be dismissed as poison leaving the body. It could not simply be waited out. It was a permanent complication in a culture with little space for love between human and shifter. What happens when the week ends? I asked. The council reconvenes. They decide whether you may remain, or whether your presence threatens the pack. Lyra's expression softened. But understand this. Even if they accept there was no manipulation, they may still forbid the relationship. We never said there was a relationship. You did not need to. She almost smiled. Everyone sees the way he looks at you, the way you answer him, the way both of you nearly destroyed yourselves to save the other. Lyra stood and touched my shoulder. 2 days remain. Her voice became quiet. Then we learn whether truth will save you or condemn you. On the 6th day, they permitted me to walk the perimeter beneath guard. The young wolf assigned to me kept a respectful distance. I stood at the forest edge, breathing pine-scented air, when footsteps approached from behind. Not the guard. My heart recognized them before I turned. Kieran stood 10 feet away. He looked as though he had not slept in days. His golden eyes were wild, exhausted, and fixed upon me with an intensity that stole my breath. You are not allowed here, I whispered. I know. His voice broke around the words. But I cannot continue. He crossed the distance. I cannot pretend this separation proves anything except that I am lost without you. Kieran, I do not care whether the council calls it real or artificial. I do not care whether my father rejects me or removes me as heir. He stopped before me. I do not care about any of it. His hands framed my face. I love you. The world stopped. I think I loved you from the moment you knelt in that blood-soaked forest and refused to let me die. His thumbs trembled against my cheeks. From the riddles you gave me to keep me conscious. From the promise that death would not win. My breath caught. You cannot say this now. We are being watched. Especially now. His voice became fierce. They are trying to prove what exists between us is false. His thumbs brushed away tears I had not noticed falling. Tell me you feel nothing. His gaze searched mine. Tell me I am alone in this, and I will walk away. I will accept their judgment. I will let you return to grandmother and pretend none of it mattered. I should have lied. A denial might have protected him, protected me. But I had been raised to choose truth even when truth carried a knife. I love you too, I whispered. The words changed everything. I do not know whether it began because we survived trauma together, because you became everything I never knew I wanted, or because fate chose the cruelest possible way to bind us. I placed my hands against his chest. But whatever this is, it is real. Kieran kissed me. It was nothing like the gentle first kisses in old stories. It was fierce, desperate, salted by my tears and the blood from his bitten lip. A promise, a claiming, a defiance. When we separated, breathless, I saw the young guard watching with wide eyes. You will report this, I said. He hesitated. I should. It is my duty. Kieran's body tightened. But I was at the gathering, the guard continued. I saw him fight. I saw him use every piece of strength your healing gave him. His gaze moved between us. I do not believe artificial bonds make someone fight that way. He turned toward the forest. I believe real ones do. I will patrol the boundary, he said. I return in 10 minutes. He walked away deliberately. What happens before then is between you and the gods. This changes everything, I whispered. He may remain silent today, but people will know. Let them. Kieran wrapped his arms around me. I am finished hiding, finished pretending duty matters more than love. Your father may never accept us. Then I challenge his decision. I surrender the airship if necessary. He looked down at me. But I will not surrender you. Not to politics, not to tradition, not to anyone. Then his expression softened. Unless leaving is what you want. He forced the words out. If you wish to return to grandmother, I will persuade the council to release you. His arms loosened, though pain crossed his face. But if you remain, understand that I will fight for us, regardless of cost. I thought of every promise already made, to save him, to heal him, to prepare him for the challenge. I had kept them all with sleeplessness, fear, and pieces of my own peace. But somewhere in the darkness of that cabin, another promise had formed without words. I see you, not the heir, not the warrior, not the future alpha. I see the man terrified of failing those who depend upon him. And I love him anyway. I stay, I said. Kieran became perfectly still. Whatever comes, I stay. He kissed me again, softer this time. A seal upon the vow. When the guard returned, we stood apart, but we did not hide. The truth lived in our faces, in our hands reaching instinctively toward one another, in the way the rest of the world disappeared whenever our eyes met. The council meets tomorrow, the guard said quietly. Prepare yourselves. One more night of separation. One more night of separation. Then we would face judgment together. The council chamber was crowded the next morning, not only the 7 members. Dozens of wolves pressed along the walls to witness the decision. This was no longer only about Kieran and me. It was about whether humans could be trusted. Whether tradition could change, whether love could survive the boundary between 2 species. Damien stood near the front, smug with certainty. He believed he had already won. If I had drugged Kieran, I was guilty. If I had not, then I had seduced Silverpine's heir and created chaos anyway. The week of separation is complete, Alpha Grayson announced. Observations were recorded. The council has deliberated. His voice carried through the chamber. We are prepared to deliver judgment. My hand found Kieran's. I did not release it. The evidence indicates there was no artificial manipulation, Grayson continued. No bloodroot, no chemical influence. Relief surged through me. Kieran's behavior during separation reflected genuine attachment rather than withdrawal from an addictive compound. Then the Alpha's expression hardened. However, the single word froze my relief. A romantic bond between my heir and a human healer presents serious complications. It violates tradition, creates political weakness, and raises questions regarding loyalty and future leadership. Here it came, the judgment that would tear us apart. Therefore, the council has reached. Wait. Kieran stepped forward without releasing my hand. Alpha Grayson looked at him. Speak. I love her. Kieran's voice carried clearly to every corner. Completely, irrevocably, without reservation or shame. A murmur moved through the crowd. I will not apologize. I will not hide. I will not allow politics or custom to destroy what we have. His fingers tightened around mine. If loving Collins means I cannot remain heir, I accept it. He looked directly at his father. If it means exile, I accept that as well. His expression did not waver. But I will not abandon her, not for Silverpine, not for rank. A pause. Not even for you, father. Absolute silence followed. No one moved. Then Alpha Grayson laughed. You believe this is the first time a shifter has loved a human? The laughter faded. Something nostalgic and deeply painful entered his face. You believe tradition is iron, unchanging, carved by ancestors wiser than we are? He looked toward Lyra. A memory passed between them. Tell them, Lyra said quietly. Alpha Grayson turned toward the gathered pack. My mate, his voice roughened, Kieran's mother, was human. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Kieran's grip crushed mine. She died giving birth to him, Grayson continued. But before death took her, she forced me to make a promise. His winter blue eyes found his son's. That our child would never be required to choose between duty and love as I had. You never told me, Kieran said. The words barely carried. The pack was not ready. Grayson's leadership mask cracked. To admit I had taken a human mate would have weakened my authority at a time Silverpine could not afford division. His gaze lowered, and it was easier to let everyone believe she had been born among us. A shadow of grief moved over his face. Easier to protect her memory by erasing part of who she was. But now, Lyra prompted gently. Grayson lifted his head. Now my son stands before this pack and refuses secrecy. He refuses shame. He demands the freedom to love openly. He descended from his seat. And I finally understand that hiding his mother's truth did not honor her sacrifice. His eyes closed briefly. It betrayed it. He stopped before Kieran and me. Collins of Millbrook, you saved my son's life. You proved your skill, courage, and integrity. One hand settled on Kieran's shoulder. The other rested upon mine. You earned the respect of our healers and the reluctant admiration of our warriors. A faint softness entered his voice. And you accomplished something I once believed impossible. He looked at his son. You taught Kieran that love may be stronger than fear. The council's judgment is this. The entire chamber listened. Collins will remain in Silverpine as head healer, in training beneath Rowan's supervision. My breath caught. The life debt is satisfied. Grayson's gaze moved between us. But another bond is acknowledged. His voice became solemn. A bond of choice, not obligation. Kieran will remain heir. His human mate will receive the protection and respect granted to any member of this pack. Mate? I whispered. We have not. The bond exists whether you have formalized it or not, Grayson replied. Anyone with eyes sees it. Anyone with wisdom recognizes it. Then he looked past us. And anyone who challenges it. His gaze found Damien. Will answer to me personally. Damien's face twisted with fury. This is madness. You are allowing a human to pollute the bloodline and weaken Silverpine. Careful. Lyra's voice cut across him like sharpened silver. You are speaking of the Alpha's dead mate. She stepped closer. Of Kieran's mother. Of the woman who gave her life to bring Silverpine's future Alpha into this world. Her eyes became ice. Choose your next words with exceptional care. Damien's mouth closed. He searched the room for support. None came. The pack watched Grayson with new understanding. They saw decades of hidden grief, a love protected at the cost of truth, a leader who had carried both silence and command alone. This council is concluded, Grayson said. The decision stands. His voice became absolute. Kieran and Collins may pursue their bond without interference. Objections may be brought to me privately. His eyes swept the crowd. Anyone who acts against them without authority will be judged a traitor. A low rumble of acknowledgement moved through the chamber. Not everyone approved. Displeasure remained on several faces. But no one challenged the Alpha. Damien shoved his way toward the exit, his companions behind him. As he passed us, he leaned close. This is not finished, he whispered. His voice reached only Kieran and me. You made powerful enemies today. His pale eyes burned. One day, your father will no longer be able to protect you. Then he disappeared. Kieran and I remained in the center of the chamber, still holding hands, barely able to understand the future that had just opened before us. You are free, Grayson said quietly. He looked at both of us. Free to build whatever life you choose. His expression became serious. But freedom brings responsibility. Collins, every decision you make will face greater scrutiny than that of any pack-born healer. Every treatment may be questioned. His gaze did not soften. You cannot merely be competent. A pause. You will need to be exceptional. I understand. And Kieran, his son, met his gaze. You declared this love publicly. There will be no retreat into secrecy when resistance comes. Grayson's hand tightened on Kieran's shoulder. Some will judge you. Some may answer with violence because they believe humans weaken us. His voice lowered. You will defend your choice. And you will defend her, every day. I know. Kieran looked at me. I am ready. Grayson studied us. Then, without warning, he pulled Kieran into his arms. The embrace was fierce, tight, heavy with 26 years of grief left unspoken. Your mother would be proud of you, Grayson said roughly. Proud that you possess the courage to love openly. Proud that you fought for happiness instead of surrendering everything to duty. His voice nearly broke. That is her legacy, not secrecy. He held his son closer. The love that was worth keeping secret. When they separated, tears shone in both their eyes. The crowd began to leave in small groups, carrying shock, approval, and doubt into the corridors. Lyra approached. Her expression was softer than I had ever seen it. Come, she said to Kieran. It is time you learned about your mother. She touched my arm. About the human woman brave enough to love an alpha, enter a world that terrified her, and make him promise their son would never be forced to hide as they did. We spent the evening in Lyra's rooms. Kieran, Lyra, Rowan, and me. Rowan had known Kieran's mother during her final months. They told us about a human woman who wandered into pack territory 26 years earlier. Fierce, clever, completely unimpressed by wolves who could have killed her. She first saw your father in wolf form, Lyra said. His fur was covered in blood after a territorial fight. She ran? Kieran asked. Lyra smiled sadly. She asked whether he needed a healer. Was he injured? No, the blood belonged to someone else. A brief laugh passed through the room. Your father was so stunned by her lack of fear that he shifted into human form merely to demand what was wrong with her instincts. What did she say? That fear was a decision. Lyra's smile deepened, and she had chosen curiosity instead. She looked toward the fire. He loved her from that moment, though it took him months to admit it. She was a healer, Rowan added, not trained as deeply as Collins, but she carried the gift. Her green eyes rested on me. She sensed sickness before symptoms appeared. She taught me several techniques from her family. I thought of grandmother's old knowledge, the lineage she guarded so carefully. What was her name? I asked. Sarah, Lyra answered softly. Sarah of Millbrook. Silence swallowed the room. That was grandmother's teacher, I said. The words came slowly as the truth assembled itself. The woman who taught Ruby the old healing ways. My breath caught. The healer who disappeared 26 years ago. Everyone in Millbrook believed Sarah died, I continued, but grandmother never accepted it. She always said Sarah had found something more important than returning home. She found my father, Kieran whispered. He looked stunned. She found love. She had me. His voice weakened. And then she died. Not before forcing your father to swear you would be free, Lyra said firmly. If you ever loved a human, he would stand beside you instead of hiding you as he had hidden her. Understanding crashed through me. This was more than chance. Somehow, Kieran and I were connected by a line stretching across decades. Through a human healer who had loved a wolf. Through a dying mother's promise. Through grandmother's hands. The red bottle, I said suddenly. Everyone looked at me. The medicine grandmother gave me. The one I used on Kieran in the forest. My pulse quickened. That was Sarah's formula. Rowan nodded. She developed it specifically for shifter wounds. Ordinary human remedies could not keep pace with Alpha Grayson's healing when he was injured. Sarah needed medicine that could close damage before the shifter body rejected treatment. Rowan's expression grew distant. She completed only 2 bottles before she died. My throat tightened. Ruby kept both. "One for emergencies," Rowan said. "One as a memorial." And I used half the emergency bottle on a wolf I did not know. I looked at Kieran. On Sarah's son. "Perhaps some part of you recognized him," Lyra said softly. "Recognized that he was worth the irreplaceable cost. Or perhaps Sarah's legacy called to itself." Her eyes shone. "Perhaps the promise she took from Grayson reached through time and pulled you to the precise place where her son needed saving." Kieran remained silent for a long time. Then he looked at me. Wonder, grief, and something like destiny settling into acceptance filled his face. "My mother brought us together," he said. "Across death, across years, across species." His voice softened. "She ensured I would find someone like you. Someone stubborn enough to refuse your death? Someone connected to her through healing, knowledge, and bloodline." "Or," I said gently, "we loved one another because we chose to." I moved closer. "Because you were dying, and I could not walk away. Because you fought to live, and I fought beside you. Because against reason, we decided the other was worth the danger." Kieran held my gaze. "Can both be true?" He drew me against him. Destiny and choice, legacy and love. I rested my head against his chest and listened to the heartbeat I had refused to let stop. "I suppose they can." We stayed until late in the night, learning about Sarah and the hidden love that had shaped Silverpine for decades. We learned of promises spoken over a dying woman's body, promises that had quietly prepared the pack to accept something it might once have destroyed. And slowly, I understood love in the world of wolves. Complicated, dangerous, constantly defended, but worth fighting for, worth keeping promises for, worth surviving for. 1 month later, I stood in the healing quarters as Rowan's official apprentice and eventual successor. My days filled with illness, injury, teaching, and learning. My nights belonged to Kieran in the rooms we now shared openly. No hiding, no pretending our bond was professional. We built a life one careful day at a time. Every moment a gift. Every moment a battle we had chosen together. "Question," Kieran said one night. We lay tangled in darkness while his fingers traced the old scars across my hands. "Answer," I replied. It was the pattern we had used in the recovery cabin. "Do you regret saving me?" His touch stilled. That night, everything afterward. I considered it honestly. Fear, pain, judgment, the quiet life I had surrendered for one filled with danger and scrutiny. "No," I said, "because you were worth saving." I touched the space between us. "Because this life is worth defending." My voice softened. "And because the most difficult promises are often the ones that change everything." "The riddle," he murmured. "A promise. You gave me the answer in the surgical room." He drew my hand to his chest. "I have thought of it every day since. A new promise begins on 4 uncertain legs. When it grows strong, it stands upon 2. When weakened, it needs a 3rd. His heart beat beneath my palm. "And sometimes it walks on no legs at all. Only faith, only intention." "Which kind are we?" I asked. Kieran pulled me closer. "All of them." His lips touched my forehead. Still uncertain sometimes, still learning to stand, still needing support. His arms tightened, but also existing beyond words, in heartbeats, shared silence, and the certainty that whatever comes, we face it together. Outside, wolves lifted their nightly howl to the moon, a ritual of territory and belonging. For the first time since entering Silverpine, I felt included in the sound. As though I had found a place inside something ancient. As though home had waited for me in the most impossible shape. In the arms of a wolf I had refused to let die. A wolf who had refused to let me go. The promise made in a blood-soaked forest had become something neither of us predicted. Love, partnership, a future. The kind of tale wolves would repeat around fires for generations. The human healer and the alpha's heir. Sacrifice and survival. Promises kept when every reasonable hope had failed. As sleep drew me under, safe and loved beyond anything I once believed possible, I remembered grandmother's words. Healing is selfish. We do it because we cannot bear a world with less life. She had been right, but not complete. Healing was selfish. It was also the greatest generosity we could offer. The refusal to surrender life to death. The stubborn insistence that every dangerous, complicated, beautiful heartbeat was worth fighting for. I had healed Kieran's body beneath those trees. Somehow, he had healed something in me I never knew was broken. The belief that I must face everything alone. That love was a luxury beyond my reach. That saving other lives meant I could never possess one worth living. Kieran proved all of it false. And in doing so, he gave me the greatest gift of all. A future filled with promises still waiting to be made. Epilogue. The Three Who Were One. 6 months later, the healing quarters rested in pre-dawn silence. That sacred hour when the night shift ended and the day had not yet begun. I was organizing supplies, a task that had become almost meditative, when Rowan appeared in the doorway. Her expression was troubled. We have a situation. What kind? 3 travelers at the eastern border, 2 shifters and 1 human. She was already reaching for an emergency satchel. All are wounded. All refuse to say who needs treatment first. I grabbed my own kit. How serious? According to the patrol, at least 1 is dying. A pause. Possibly all 3. Rowan turned toward the door. But that is not the strange part. They are traveling together. A wolf shifter, a bear shifter, a human woman. She looked at me. And every one of them claims to be the same person. That is impossible. I know. Her mouth tightened. So either blood loss has driven all 3 into identical madness, or something impossible is waiting at our border. We rode east while dawn spread amber and rose across the mountains. Kieran insisted on accompanying us the moment he heard. Even with Rowan, border guards, and a full escort, his protective instinct would not allow me to ride toward unknown danger without him. The checkpoint was small. A cabin inside a cleared space where travelers could be examined before entering pack territory. 2 guards stood watch. Between them sat 3 wounded strangers. I stopped breathing. All 3 bled. All 3 watched one another with the same confusion and terror. But the impossible part was their faces. They were identical. Not siblings. Not close resemblance. The same sharp cheekbones. The same storm-gray eyes. The same scar dividing the left eyebrow. Only their forms differed. One was fully human. A young woman. One appeared human with wolf traits breaking through. The third was enormous even while seated. Unmistakably a bear shifter. What in the goddess's name? Kieran breathed. The human woman spoke first. Pain and exhaustion shook her voice. Please. We do not understand. She looked at her 2 copies. We were one person. Her gray eyes filled with panic. I was one person. Then I woke like this, split into 3 bodies. Her hand pressed against her blood-soaked side. We are all dying, but we do not know which one is the original. Her voice broke. Which one carries the true wound? Which one should you save? I dismounted and approached. Training pushed shock aside. Show me every injury. The human lifted her shirt. A deep blade wound crossed her ribs, the mark of a deliberate killing strike. The wolf shifter, a young man perhaps 25, revealed an identical cut. Same location, same depth. The bear shifter carried the same wound. 3 bodies. 1 injury reproduced perfectly. How can this exist? Rowan whispered as she knelt beside me. Magic broken during a shift, I said. A curse, perhaps a gift. Old stories describe something similar. Lyra emerged from the border cabin after speaking with the guards. Before territories were fixed, there were legends of shifters born with multiple simultaneous selves. She stared at the 3 wounded figures. They were called the Triformed. Legend claimed they could exist as human, primary shifter, and secondary shifter at the same time. Her face became grave. But the magic was unstable. Most died young, torn apart by conflict among their own natures. I did not choose this, the human said desperately. She looked barely 20. I was only Raven, one person surviving in the borderlands. Someone attacked me. I was dying. Her breath shuddered. I felt myself splitting, as though my body could not decide which form should die. She looked between her other selves. So it chose all of them. The weapon struck while you were shifting, I said, medical possibilities aligning inside my mind. Trauma trapped you between forms. I examined the replicated wound. But instead of remaining partially changed, your body divided those forms into 3 independent entities. Can you repair it? The wolf version asked. His voice carried the same fear. Can you put us back together? I looked at Rowan, Lyra, Kieran. No one possessed an answer. I do not know, I admitted. The 3 faces fell. This lies beyond every medical text I have read and every lesson grandmother taught. Then I stood. But I can keep all 3 of you alive while we find the answer. Rowan, prepare transport. She nodded at once. Kieran, send word to your father. If Raven is truly triformed, every pack will hear of it. Why? The bear asked. His deeper voice carried the same soul. Why would packs care about one broken person? Because if the legends are true, Lyra said, you may be the most powerful shifter born in centuries. Her expression remained grim. They will ask whether you are a weapon, a curse, or a miracle. She glanced toward the forest. And each pack will either try to possess you or destroy you before another can. The 3 ravens looked at one another. The same thought moved through all 6 gray eyes. I only wanted to survive, the human whispered. And now I am in greater danger than before. We will protect you, Kieran said. His command allowed no doubt. All 3 of you. While Collins searches for a cure, you remain beneath Silverpine protection. His golden eyes hardened. No one reaches you without passing through me. Why? Human Raven asked. You do not know us. You owe us nothing. Because someone once helped me without obligation. Kieran looked toward me. Someone found a dying wolf and chose mercy, though it was dangerous, complicated, and destroyed the life she knew. His expression softened. That mercy changed everything. He faced Raven again. Now it is my turn to continue it. As we lifted each raven onto a stretcher and began the careful journey home, I felt another promise settle around me. Another impossible case. Another life, or 3 lives, hanging between my hands in death. But this time, I was not alone. Kieran rode beside me. Rowan brought 17 years of knowledge. Lyra carried the memory of ancient magic. And Silverpine had become a pack capable of making room for the impossible, and for a human healer inside a world of wolves. This will be complicated, Rowan said as we rode. Everything worth doing is. 3 consciousnesses, 3 bodies, 1 shared wound. She shook her head. It violates every principle of healing. Then we will discover new principles. I looked back at the stretchers. 3 identical faces watched the brightening sky with the same fear and wonder. That is what healers do. We learn. We adapt. My certainty strengthened. We save lives that should not be savable. Spoken like Ruby's granddaughter, Rowan said. Something close to pride entered her voice. And like Sarah's successor, she looked at me. They would both be proud of the healer you became. As the sun rose and we crossed into Silverpine territory, I remembered the riddle that connected Kieran and me beneath the trees. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, 3 in the evening, and sometimes none at all? A promise. My promise to save Kieran transformed my entire life. It brought me to this pack, to this love, to a future I could never have imagined. Now I made another. I would save Raven, all 3 of her. I would tear through every medical text, challenge every assumption, learn new ways that bodies and magic might exist together, because that was the meaning of a promise. Commitment beyond reason, faith beyond evidence. A stubborn refusal to let death win when victory appeared impossible. The healing quarters waited ahead. The true work was about to begin. Inside those 3 identical bodies, one divided soul carried another story. A story of identity, transformation, of which self is real when every self exists at once. Perhaps even a story of love forced to navigate 3 bodies and 1 heart. But that story belonged to another time. For now, I had wounds to treat, a mystery to unravel, and promises to keep. The sun rose fully above Silverpine and illuminated the path before us. I followed it without fear. Whatever challenge waited, I was ready. After all, I had once saved a dying wolf with herbs, will, and a promise. How much more difficult could saving 3 versions of one person possibly be?